Warrior Lore. Chapter 720, Genesis Stage. Chapter 720, Genesis Stage. Proofreader, Papatonks. Senior Sister. Isn't that the drunkard we met in that small town? Danner pointed at the old man in the air as she asked Shui Ruahua. Shui Ruahua was startled. That's definitely him. Zhuofan said he was an unfathomable expert, and we later realized it as well, but I didn't think he'd be this strong. His power must be tyrannical to cause such a huge gulf. Qingcheng nodded as well. Zhuofan looked on with a frown. Why go about sneaking in when he's now showing himself? Maybe he got pissed he didn't find the sacred weapon and figured the Exalted screwed him over. So now he drew them out. Since the cover is blown, it is over. But were the Exalted easy targets? You might be the best in Western lands, but that is when it comes to personal strength. Just how much do you have it in you to fight your two former masters? There's strength in numbers. Zhuofan frowned. He figured this might happen. The two sides would meet, and after a brief talk, they'd figure out he stole the sacred weapon. Then Qingcheng and the Exalted would come to deal with him then again. In this deadly situation, there was still a chance they had some bad blood between them. This would lead to a misunderstanding. They all knew the sacred weapon was strong, and not just anyone could wield it. But who knew the divine eye of the void could control it? This way, the sacred weapon had disappeared into thin air. They would have no choice but to ask each other for clues, because only the three of them could get it while forgetting about him. Next would be fighting it out, only to settle nothing in the end. It was his most favorite item of the day. Zhuofan hoped his sneaky plan would go as he wished, to have both sides think the sacred weapon was on each other, and not to resolve their issues while fighting, or they would soon suspect him. That's when I'm done for. However, the chances of that happening were highly unlikely. Or Qingcheng wouldn't just sneak in. What is he doing there? We clearly sealed the entrance, only leaving this side. Did he enter right under our noses? Exalted He Ran took a deep breath and roared in fury. Exalted by Mei just frowned and thought Qingcheng stood before the sacred mine as he shouted at a monitoring array, Masters, I've come to visit. Won't you see me? Master? He's from the Double Dragon Manor? The audience was stunned at this development. The Exalted felt helpless. Exalted He Ran shouted, and a white gate appeared in the air. He stepped through it, with Exalted by Mei right behind him. The audience was even more perplexed. The guy called for his master, so why isn't he showing up? Does he want the Exalted to go there? Wait, does that mean the Exalted had disciples? But we know they only ever had one. The best in Western lands, Qingcheng. Everyone exclaimed. That old man standing in that storm is that strong. Yenemo had already guessed his identity, but hearing him admitting it still came as a shock. He was Qingcheng, and only he dared to say that none of Western lands' 10 sects could stop him now. He came to see his old masters, the Exalted Double Dragons, the strongest in Western lands. He did not come for a social visit, though. A battle was about to break out. Seeing the 3 strongest in Western lands fight makes this trip all the more worthwhile. Haha. Yenemo was shaking in excitement. Shui Ruahua was dumbstruck. The girls knew the old man was beyond them, but they never thought he was that formidable. Yet these ignorant lasses actually tied up this monster. If not for Zhuofan stopping these fools, they might have done something they'd regret. Shui Ruahua realized that their being alive was all thanks to Zhuofan. All the girls looked gratefully at Zhuofan, only to see him calmly watching the screen. Whoosh. The Exalted appeared before Qingcheng and looked at the deep gulf beneath him with a dark look. Shang, is this how you welcome us? Exalted He Ran squinted. Qingcheng looked over at him, then bowed before the two. Greetings, masters. If you still see me as a disciple. Humph, you caused such a mess back then and have been cast out of Double Dragon Manor. You've since stopped being our disciple. Exalted He Ran flicked his sleeve as he huffed. Qingcheng's face twitched and said, if that's the case, why then did you accept my greeting? A day a master, a father for life. Did we not teach you? Even if we don't see you as a disciple, you don't see us as masters? You won't greet us upon meeting us? Humph, you've become worse, I see. Exalted He Ran replied. Ugh. Qingcheng groaned and sighed. Master He Ran, you're the same as always, still so shameless. You dare talk to your master like that? As if you're any better. Yes, I'm nothing to look at, but isn't that what my master taught me? With your shameless style, I got half of your so-called integrity. That's called rubbing off on me. Ha ha ha, Qingcheng mocked. Exalted He Ran rolled his eyes and ignored him. He actually felt better hearing this, being brought back to those days as he taught this kid. Exalted by Mei knew his thoughts and smiled, then turned serious. Shang, what are you doing here? What do you want? I broke in to take back my sword. Sword? Exalted by Mei exclaimed. The Atlas sword? It's no longer yours. Why should we return it? Of course it's mine, you agreed. On the day I can beat the both of you, I have the right to inherit it. That is a promise we made to our disciple, which you no longer are. Exalted He Ran snorted. Qingcheng smiled and shrugged. No matter. I'll be taking that sword today. No matter how much it costs. I didn't want to fight with masters, planning on taking it and leaving, but since you found out, we can only go by the old agreement. No matter if it's 1 or 2, I'll beat you both and take that sword. You sure can talk. Don't think you can defeat us just because you got to stab me with a sword when you were banished. Exalted Double Dragon shouted. In a single battle, you are the best in Western lands. But don't forget we two never separate. You still have a long way to go to be the best. Qingcheng was angry as he gnashed his teeth. It doesn't matter. We'll know once we fight. His entire aura exploded. The sky dimmed as sword waves covered the heavens and cut everything they touched. The world was breaking apart before he even attacked. Everyone cried out. They would all be wiped out in an instant if that happened here. The best in Western lands. Zhua Fan shouted. The peak of mortal domain, Genesis stage. Above the soul harmony stage was returning to one's ancestry, the Genesis stage. When the soul made a link with the world's power, one could truly destroy this land. It was without a doubt the strongest in the mortal domain, and this stage was where one broke the shackles of mortality to enter Spirit King's stage. Only that kind of cultivator had the right to roam the sacred domain. Chapter 721. Master and Disciple Fight. Chapter 721. Master and Disciple Fight. Proofreader. Papatonks. Qingcheng's surge of power covered the entire realm as it shook under it. The biting winds brushed past the exalted double dragons, forcing them to become grave as they faced this power. Hundreds of years had passed, and Qingcheng, of course, had grown in power. So much so that they were having doubts of fighting him together. The people looked tense and a bit excited even at the screen, showing a scene that could only be described as a prelude to total destruction. 3 Genesis stage experts were about to fight. This was a once-in-a-blue-moon fight. Shang, before we fight, I want to ask you something. Exalted by Mei began. Qingcheng grumbled something before finally saying, Say it. After all these years, why did you come for the sword now? Did you meet someone strong, or do you just want to rule someplace? Give me a reason. Exalted He Ran looked straight at him, waiting for an answer as well. Qingcheng squinted and said, Must I say it? It's fine either way, since you're no longer our disciple. You have no reason to explain yourself to us. Exalted by Mei spoke coldly. Exalted He Ran stared hard at Qingcheng. We must have taught you that regardless of what you do, you should always have a reason for doing it, even if it's wrong. That way, you at least won't feel lost. As the Exalted spoke, Qingcheng felt he was in a particular mood. They were clearly asking Qingcheng if he still saw them as masters at his very core. They were testing his intentions for taking the sword and whether he was worthy of inheriting it. Qingcheng took a deep breath as he pondered. To be honest, 3 years later, I will have a life and death fight with the old freak from the central area. I'm sure that if I have the help of Western Land's treasure, the Atlas sword, I will win. Central Area's Sword Star Empire's invincible sword? Exalted by Mei gasped in disbelief. How did you end up messing with him? You're even having a life and death battle? Are you crazy? Exalted He Ran shook all over. His fists clenched tight as he cursed, Rotten brat. You must be so damn cocky to think that being called the best in Western lands means you're the king of the world. You think that that freak is someone you can toy with? Why do you think 4 areas joined hands to resist the central area, yet we're still at a disadvantage? Qingcheng only took a long breath and made up his mind. Exalted by Mei saw his determination and asked, Shang, you're not impulsive and should know when to step back. Why? A man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. Qingcheng held his head high as he sighed. What was it that I told Exalted before I left the Western lands? That I had finally found my path. The two nodded. Peace on this world. Yes, that is my path. That is her path. Qingcheng's eyes flashed. It was both of our hopes to create a better world. Ever since she died, I have gone crazy and I have fallen into despair. But then I thought to myself, rather than go mad from the pain and hatred, it'd be better to achieve this dream she wanted to see. That's why, for the past centuries, I have created such a place, a paradise between areas. Alas, nothing good lasts forever. My strength keeps all those petty thieves away, but I have been in constant conflict with the Central Area's Sword Star Empire's expansion, always wanting to wage war. I used to think that no matter how strong it was, my slice of heaven was insignificant, that they would at least talk with me on account of being a Genesis stage expert. Yet I did not expect that old freak to come straight for me and make a bet. If I lose, my land will be razed to the ground. Hundreds of years gone. The Exalted picked up on his problem and said, "And the old monster is coming for you still?" "Ha, that's right. Masters are the wisest." Qingcheng sighed. "My place is only the size of a small empire. It has no riches and no grudge with anyone. How could happy normal people incite the wrath of others? How could they get the great Sword Star Empire to come after them? Unless that old bag of bones." Qingcheng's voice trailed off, switching to sending words instead. The Exalted sported an astonished look. Qingcheng sighed. The old guy has been in seclusion for hundreds of years, and now that he came out and is far stronger, he wants to go big. The Four Lands are in danger, and I hope Masters will be ready. With fortune, I saw that this time's Double Dragon gathering has some good seeds that might give the Western lands some hope. The Exalted nodded and sighed, but then Exalted Ran raised an eyebrow. "I just don't know if I should give you the sword or not anymore." Ha, yeah, it's quite the conundrum. Without the sword, I'll lose for sure. But if you do give it to me, maybe it will become the weapon by which the Western lands would run with blood. I'd be just as conflicted by this if I were Masters. Qingcheng chuckled. Then his power exploded once more. Since that's the case, just like the old agreement, strength will determine the victor. The Exalted nodded and said, "Strength it is?" The two Exalted were showing off their strength as well, their dragon power tracing the lands and skies as it clashed with Qingcheng's fierce sword waves with loud noises. The space began to shake from the impact. About to crack under their power, the audience watched agape. Are these the strongest experts in the world? This is outstanding. If they fight, the world might be ruined. This was what everyone thought. Even if exaggerated, they knew a saying, the top of mortal domain are like gods. Only Zhuo Fan eased a breath, fight, don't talk, and don't solve the riddle of the sacred weapon. Though it was too soon to celebrate, it all came down to how they fought, and if they would settle this problem instead. So Zhuo Fan's eyes were fixed on the fight. Double Dragon Art, Double Dragon Emergence. The Exalted Double Dragons met their palms and shouted. Black and white powers came out as they spun on each other. Just like a yin-yang symbol, the world was filled with a majestic power as it gathered around them in the form of a black and white roaring dragon. They then pushed out their palms and unleashed the dragon upon Qingcheng. The mighty force kept pushing him back. Qingcheng pointed his finger at the skies, and a draconic roar sounded. A dragon revolved high above around his finger. As if it was climbing the heavens, the immense sword energy had reached its peak and gathered on his finger. Forming an illusory atlas sword, the huge dragon roamed on this sword as it kept roaring under all of this immense power. The skies, the earth, everything was constantly shaking. Dragon cleaving art. Qingcheng shouted and brought his sword down upon the black and white dragon. The explosion from the impact was monumental. The skies dimmed, while the land around the sacred mine was leveled and barren. It went on for hundreds of miles, leaving in its wake an apocalypse. The crowd was overwhelmed. Just one blow from a Genesis stage expert unleashed such deadly power. Zhuo Fan and Yi Lin's fight was astonishing in its own right, but not as frightening as this. They still had a way to go before they could burn the world to cinders. Everyone paled after seeing such might for the first time. No wonder Qingcheng could come and go in the Western lands 10 sects as he wished. One snap of his fingers can erase a sect? Chapter 722, Misunderstanding. Chapter 722, Misunderstanding. Proofreader, Papatonks. The two great powers clashed and released constant explosions as they were in deadlock. Even so, the powers slowly weakened as time passed. With a crack, Qingcheng's sword soon vanished, while the exalted double dragon's black and white dragon crumbled away. Yet, just as the attacks collapsed, a trace of power zipped between sides. A powerful dragon force hit Qingcheng in the chest, making him groan and forcing him back as he spat blood. Whoosh, while two sharp sword waves whistled into the exalted. Unable to react, the waves passed through the exalted shoulders and left two red lines as masters and disciple fought. It ended up with both sides suffering and neither getting the upper hand. The crowd was astounded. Qingcheng was the best in Western lands for a reason. Now, 2 against 1, and against his old masters, he still fought to a draw. This, however, left the three feeling complicated. Exalted Ran glanced at his shoulder and sighed. Shen, just leave. Old-timer, exalted by Mei, looked at them, then at the sacred mine having lost its familiar feel, and sighed. Shen's eyes shook. He wiped his mouth and looked at the imprint in his chest. He could feel his innards close to boiling as he sighed. He and the exalted would only end up hurting each other. He could not defeat them, thus he could not take the sword. The exalted are still thinking of Western lands peace. Ha ha ha. Qingcheng shook his head, giving a deep bow to the exalted double dragons before vanishing. Seeing him leave, exalted double dragon frowned. Old-timer, will you just let him take the sword? With no trace of it coming from the cave, that means he must have it. He made a big ruckus and called us out just to prove that he could take the sword openly. However, even if he loses, I don't think he'll leave the sword behind. Exalted Ran shook his head and looked at his wound. 2 against 1, yet we're evenly matched. If he had taken out the sword, we'd have lost. Why didn't he? Exalted by Mei was worried. Old-timer, you're right. We had planned on giving him the sword, but just like he said, that old freak from the central area is on the move. If we don't have the land's treasure, what comes will? So what if we had it? Won't the old freak have one as well? Exalted Ran shook his head. When the old freak takes the central area's divine sword over to us, we'll still be of no match. It's better if we give it to Shang, letting him fight for his beliefs. We'll have no regrets regardless of the outcome, since he's already stronger than us. Exalted by Mei sighed as he agreed. Yeah, last time we didn't protect his beliefs and forced him to leave. At least now, we can make amends by letting him take the sword. We sealed the entrance at the heaven-reaching pavilion, yet never believed he would come out in the open and take the sword like this. Ha ha ha, what does it have to do with that old freak from the central area anyway? He just took it and left. Exalted by Mei seemed to have accepted this truth, but then frowned. But how on earth did he sneak in? Did he really slip in under our noses? Ha ha ha, he took the sword, so what difference does it make? Exalted Ran vanished. We need to get in touch with the other 3 lands experts. Get ready for that old freak. Exalted by Mei raised an eyebrow and nodded, vanishing as well. Unfortunately, neither Qingcheng nor exalted double dragons figured out that it was just one giant misunderstanding. The exalted double dragons thought they lost, so they left Qingcheng thinking he already had the sword. But Qingcheng always thought the exalted knew he came here, so they took the sword on purpose, keeping it with them, adding to that the draw. Exalted Ran let him leave, making him think this was their way of driving him away. Since he couldn't beat him, he wouldn't get the sword. That was why he left sadly. Thus, the prized Atlas sword of the Western lands became an enigma. Qingcheng thought it was with the exalted, while the exalted thought he had it. They were both wrong though, as it was on Zhuo Fan all along. When the exalted returned, they had the crowd disperse. Looking back at the screen, Zhuo Fan sighed. The misunderstanding took hold between them, and I am left getting away with it. Qingcheng was still oblivious he'd been made the scapegoat. Nothing but the lack of communication. Zhuo Fan sighed and sighed, even though the two sides were master and disciple. Since they broke it off, meeting again was a tense experience. The trio had to stick their pride out as well, so of course they ignored the trifles, leaving simple communication out of the equation. It was the perfect setup for a big misunderstanding. What Zhuo Fan had hoped all along. If Qingcheng had heard exalted He Rant's words after he left, he would have asked more about the sword, and Zhuo Fan's plan would have unraveled while it wouldn't happen on the spot. The doubt in Qingcheng would grow, and would find him out sooner or later. A shame this expert is too prideful, too nice. Not winning meant he had no right to get the sword. Qingcheng thought so and admitted defeat, leaving without a word. Ha ha ha, this way I can move about without a care. Zhuo Fan snickered inside as he stuck his chin out. The fiends found it odd. What's got you so perky all of a sudden? Being the top middle 3 sect isn't a cause for celebration? Ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan quirked an eyebrow. Ugh. Fiend Yang looked lost, but Exalted already announced our spot. How come you're happy only now? I just came to... Zhuo Fan's eyes darted all over as he smiled. Fiend Yang's eye twitched and rolled his eyes. This guy is being weird again. It's been said for an hour now, and you're just reacting? There's no way he's happy over that. But if he doesn't want to say it, whatever. The guys shrugged, then shook their heads. Sometimes, Steward Zhuo was just plain weird, and sometimes mysterious. They helped Zhuo Fan to get back to his room, planning on leaving once he recovered. They had completed the Double Dragon Gathering mission and would be rewarded once they got back to the sect. The fiends couldn't wait to break the news back home. Zhuo Fan, get better while I settle the details with others about our bragging speech once we get home. Ha ha. Fiend Yang closed the door and laughed. Zhuo Fan merely smiled. The instant he was alone, he heard someone. Kid, you'd best leave as well in a few days. I find it hard to leave you even though we met for a few days. Zhuo Fan jerked in fright. He wiped his head around to see Qingcheng disappointed and drowning his sorrow with wine. Senior, what are you doing back here? Zhuo Fan's heart skipped a beat and gulped as he forced a smile. He didn't find out anything, right? Zhuo Fan was worried the old guy might have spotted something that gave him away. Qingcheng watched him through drunken eyes and sighed. I failed in the end. The Exalted were on guard and took the sword. I could not take it. That can't be. I saw Senior wounding the Exalted. Who else in Western lands but Senior is fit to have that sword? He gave him a thumbs up in good flattery while being on guard as to why Qingcheng was back here again. Chapter 723, Treasure Your People. Chapter 723, Treasure Your People. Proofreader, Papatonks. Qingcheng smiled through hazy eyes as he cursed, Rotten brat, enough of your flattery. A loss or a draw is still a loss, thus not worthy of the sacred sword. This will make matters so much worse in the next fight. Senior has another battle? Zhuo Fan probed. Qingcheng nodded. The strongest in the central area, invincible sword. Lasting 10 moves would be a feat in itself. Senior is so strong, but can't handle 10 of his moves? Just how strong is he? Zhuo Fan was astounded. Are the best in Western lands and the best in the central area so far apart? Qingcheng sighed and took a large gulp of wine. Kid, you're too green, young and cocky. But remember this, there's always someone stronger out there. What can the best in Western lands amount to when in the central area? He wouldn't even be in the top 10 experts. What? Zhuo Fan was shocked, not because of Qingcheng's disparity compared to the central area, but of the gap between areas. Zhuo Fan had been a demonic emperor from the sacred domain. There was hardly any expert he hadn't seen. Yet the sharp difference in power on the same continent left him stunned. It was like a 3-year-old holding huge wealth, only to have a towering thug for a neighbor. Who'd ever feel safe? He would have been robbed blind ages ago. But why is the central area so strong? Qingcheng saw through him and mocked. Of the entire continent, only the central area differs from the other 4. Do you know why? Zhuo Fan showed he didn't. It's their structure. Qingcheng turned serious. The 4 lands are governed by sects, with hundreds of empires serving them. This makes them a loose force, since when it comes to waging war, it's still the empires that are stronger. When did you ever hear sects going to war? Zhuo Fan nodded as he contemplated. Qingcheng continued. Here's where the central area is different. There's an old monster there and a huge empire, Swordstar Empire. Invincible Sword, its ancestor, had founded the empire 10,000 years ago. He is not only strong, but even swallowed all the nations and sects around him until he achieved this form, an area ruled entirely by one empire. An entire area with just one empire? Zhuo Fan was shocked. Now he knew why the central area was so strong with just a sole empire. Its development was much sharper than many conflicting empires. The fact that it was a single empire was an amazing feat by itself. The other four lands weren't like this at all. While all wanted to achieve it, they had no one to take the lead. Take Western lands, for example. Exalted double dragons were tough, but they were just cultivators and lacked vision and a calculating mind. Qingcheng gave him a long look and patted his shoulder. Kid, I can tell you are a man of ambition, and even a trace of that old freak's nature. Lead your heroes, take your turf, but you best hurry it up and get stronger too. Central area is on the move. It will still take some time, but you're way too young. You're just out of time. You mean that the central area's action has nothing to do with me? Zhuofan started. Qingcheng smirked. That old freak took thousands of years to get his tiny empire to rule the entire central area. Now he's set his eyes on the world. Everyone is involved in this, you included. Even if you hide, can those girls hide as well? Can their empire, Tianyu, hide? Ha ha ha, the future of Western lands is yours. As a Western lands man, maybe the future will be your opponents. But now, I hope you'll get ready and not regret what comes. Qingcheng stood up and bent his waist, about to leave. I best be going now. I've wasted enough time on a kid. I just hope the Western lands youth will grow. It will be up to fate if you'll get over this calamity. Zhuofan's heart sank. He just wanted to focus on cultivating and get back to sacred domain. But Qingcheng just said that chaos would soon envelop the five lands. He didn't care much, since he was a lone wolf. No one would find him if he wanted to hide. It was another matter for the Luo clan. It would be hard to not get dragged into this mess. Maybe I should get some things ready, just in case. Then I'll leave in peace. Zhuofan was deep in thought as Qingcheng was fading away. Yet he did say one last thing. By the way, kid, you better take care of that girl. Treasure your people. Oh please, I'm a demon. Why would I care about some girl? Knowing who Qingcheng was speaking of, Zhuofan blushed. Ha ha ha. What does being demonic or righteous have to do with it? You're just one man. Better not live to regret it later. Qingcheng vanished at long last. Zhuofan rolled his eyes. Yet he now had more to worry about. It'll be hard to meet again after the Double Dragon gathering. Just that my path. Zhuofan closed his eyes. 3 days later, Zhuofan was in his room cultivating, his wounds halfway to being healed. It was around this time the Sect teams were leaving. Demon Soul Sect and Sword God Sect had come to say goodbye to Zhuofan, wishing him a quick recovery. Zhuofan nodded with a smile. It looks to me we're practically relatives with these sections. It'll be up to Kuei Lang and the others now on how they cherish their allies. He could now return to the Luo clan at ease. Zhuofan, Schwanger and I are returning to Tianyu. When will you leave? Zhuofan opened his door to find that it was Yongning. Zhuofan frowned. I've yet to recover and I still need around 10 days before I leave at ease. At ease? Who is after you? Yongning started. Zhuofan smiled. I don't know, since I've got many enemies. Better to be safe than sorry. The two girls nodded. Zhuofan did gain plenty of enemies this time and should be ready just in case. It wouldn't do to let the enemy make use of his wounded state. Then we will go on ahead. The girls waved with a smile, their eyes shining brightly. Zhuofan found it odd and pondered. Aren't you two girls afraid of going back to Tianyu alone? Why don't you wait a few days and we'll go together? Really? Yongning perked up. Schwanger pulled her clothes. Then she came to and smiled. It's fine. Going back with Sister Qingcheng. We'll be talking about plenty of girl stuff. Like how to figure out your mind. Win your favor, mem. A blushing Schwanger rushed to cover her mouth. Is Mystical Heaven Sect leaving as well? Zhuofan frowned after hearing her. Qingcheng's words came to him, and so he stood up to leave. The two hurried after him. They soon arrived at Mystical Heaven Sect's place. The disciples were gathered around, ready to leave. Shui Ruahua noticed him, and all the girls turned to Qingcheng. Sister Qingcheng, he's here. Danner got Qingcheng's attention, shaking a little. Qingcheng turned around to meet Zhuofan's cold eyes. She smiled and walked closer. How are you feeling? Much better. Why only ask now? Isn't it a little late? Ha ha ha. Doesn't Steward dislike chatter, always being alone? How come you're blaming me for not seeing you? Qingcheng teased. Zhuofan looked deep into Qingcheng's eyes. Give me half a year, and I'll give you an answer for back then. Zhuofan then left, but Qingcheng was stunned. She then smiled, her eyes filled with tears of joy. Turning around, She floated back to her team like a butterfly. The others were stumped at their icy teammate being lively and having a bright smile. What did that guy say? Sister Qingcheng. What's wrong? Danner hesitated. Qingcheng beamed with joy. He said he'll give me an answer. He finally faltered. The others were lost. What does that mean? That was something only Qingcheng knew. It was a question she asked Shuafan a long time ago. Xin Xiaoyu looked on with cold eyes and clenched fists. Half a year, is it? Perfect. Chapter 724. Yun Clan Ancestral Home. Chapter 724. Yun Clan Ancestral Home. Proofreader. Papatonks. 10 days later, Shuafan opened his door to take a deep breath of fresh air. He was in a better mood now that his wounds were healed. What awaited him outside was his team, the 9 disciples and 3 fiends of demon-scheming Sect. They had always been waiting for Shuafan to get better and get home these days. The other sects had already gone, leaving them behind. They came last, and now they were leaving last, though the mood was completely different. They were no longer tense, but jubilant. Shuafan, you're the only one left. Can we go now? Fiend Yang grinned at Shuafan. I've sent the sect Ascending Jade already, saying that we'll get back in 2 months, but I have yet to give them the good news. Shuafan raised an eyebrow and noticed Fiend Yang's rotten smile. You'll be making them sick with worry? Haha, that'll make things more interesting. While we risked our lives here, they'd just been casually waiting for the news. That's too easy for them. Fiend Yang winked at Shuafan. You're going to leave anyway. You should use this chance to get back at those old fools now while you still can. Besides, once we sent them the great news, their towering fury would just fizzle out, right? The others laughed along. Shuafan shrugged. Fine, I'm leaving anyway, so I'll just take this burden. Take it as my prank. Haha, wonderful. That's our great steward. Fiend Yang patted his shoulder, and the others nodded with soft eyes. They knew their days with Shuafan were running out. Shuafan, are you leaving the demon-scheming sect? A girl cried out. Shuafan turned to see Yongning, who suddenly looked at him in shock. Where are you going? You better give us a clear location, or we won't be able to find you. Shuafan's eyes softened. You don't have to look for me. Once I finish reporting to the demon-scheming sect, I'll be going home to Tianyu. Really? The girls cheered. Shuafan nodded. Of course. Why else did you think I asked you to wait? Forget Mystical Heaven sect and come with us. Once I finish over at the sect, we'll be going home together, so you won't meet any trouble on the way. The girls bobbed their heads in elation. With Shuafan back in the Luo clan, the girls would no longer have to suffer the bitter loneliness of being so far apart, but the fact that Qingcheng couldn't come along made them sad. No one else knew Shuafan better than her, even though they were love rivals. For her not to be around Shuafan, they thought it was a great loss. Actually, Qingcheng's graceful stance had moved the girls. If they could all go together, it would be so much better now. Let's set off. Shuafan shouted, breaking their thoughts. Seeing them all go, the girls caught up, but then Schwanger stalled and her eyes turned black as they reflected the starry sky. Her heart throbbed in her chest and she was gasping for breath. What's wrong? Schwanger? Yongning started in worry. Shuafan frowned. Coming over. What happened? I don't know. My heart suddenly became frantic. I'm better now. Schwanger looked lost as she shook her head. She felt a sudden danger, as if someone was coming for her. But then the feeling went away as quick as it came. Shuafan looked around the area with a careful gaze before setting his mind at ease. It must be that Schwanger is unwell. Once we return, she'll be getting better. And so, they left the Double Dragon Manor, unaware that Schwanger's frantic heart was an omen of the future. Bam! In a forest, a rock covered in moss was pulverized. The sun's bright rays shone down deep in the dark and humid cave, long hidden from the world. 2 panting figures stood before it. Enjoy, Second Prince. We finally found the Yun clan ancestral home. Ha ha ha, a mere profound heaven expert, wearing all black, looked at the other in glee. Grinning, the youth nodded, clenching the yellow silk tight in his hand. So many years, and now we finally found this accursed place. Big brother, imperial father, once I crack the Yun clan ancestral home's secret, I will find the best in Western lands and will return the lands to the Yuan clan. I will avenge you. And you, old third, dishonorable pig, your days are at an end. Ha ha ha. The youth cackled like mad, his eyes consumed by hatred. The guy in black sighed, nodding to himself. The lies Crown Prince weaved had the second prince seek revenge rather than instruct us. He was truly wise. Only hatred can make one seek revenge. These men were Crown Prince's men. They had no feud with the imperial family or Qingcheng. After the Crown Prince's death, all of his loyal men were wanted across the nation. Scurrying like rats for so many years had worn the fight out of them that went double for those who went with the second prince after the Yun clan ancestral home. After the bitter life they had been through the past years, it proved to be too much for most as they left one by one, leaving him all alone. Even so, even he had to beat a hasty retreat against some of the dangers they faced now, thanks to the Crown Prince beguiling Yuan Yong into exacting revenge. With his help, they finally arrived. This was just another proof of how hatred could drive a person to no end. If it was their mission, they would have long abandoned it. Only the second prince persevered. To restore the empire without fail, the guy in black even found himself admiring the second prince. Though the clueless royalty was being played like a puppet on a string. Looking ahead, the guy in black took the lead. Your Highness, I'll be scouting ahead. Stay behind me and be careful. Thank you, Hang. Second prince nodded, smiley face. The name is lit. Black Hawk. After years of toil, the second prince finally shed his overconfidence as an imperial prince. Finally showing respect to the wise, the guy in black was touched. Your Highness, you're too kind. It's my duty. You're too humble. Hey, without you, I would have never reached here. Being close all their journey, the second prince sighed. To find the Yun clan ancestral home, we've been through so much danger and lost our way more times than I can count. We have even been trapped again and again. In the end, how many died? How many are left? Now I am alone, with you as my sole companion to share life and death with. From now on, you are my brother. The guy in black shook, touched to the core. He never imagined that the second prince they were ordered to use as a pawn would treat him, so he felt ashamed. He wanted to spill the beans about everything and not let his highness suffer for another's revenge. Everyone had a heart, even the crown prince's die-hard followers. Having spent so many years with the second prince, he had a change of heart. He couldn't bear to see his new master being hurt for following this stupid hatred. But that would mean the crown prince's final wish. Your Highness, actually Haing was conflicted, frowning as he wanted to say something. In his moment of carelessness, he stepped onto something and fell plop. In the darkness, Haing suddenly vanished and the second prince cried out, Haing. What followed was him falling as well, and beneath him was nothing but utter blackness, a dark hole swallowing him whole. Chapter 725. Emperor Yun's Fragment. Chapter 725. Emperor Yun's Fragment. Proofreader, Papatonks. Aya. Two sharp yells broke the silent darkness, yet only their own ears could hear them. Second Prince and Haing then looked around, but beyond the eternal darkness there was only more black. Haing, can you fly out? Second Prince asked. He shook his head, filled with dread. No, this cave is just weird, preventing me, a profound heaven expert, from flying. Yet we're still falling. Just when will we reach the end? We're finished. With such a deep cave, once we hit the ground, we'll be plastered. My life will return to the heavens. Second Prince wailed, filled with resentment. He hadn't gotten revenge yet. How could he die just like that? Haing sighed, biting back the words that threatened to come out. Though he would die having never fulfilled his revenge, it was a notch better to die for one's ideal. While telling him the truth would mean saying he was a pawn in the hand of a dead crown prince for years now, that would be even more devastating. Letting him go in peace is better. He's been bitter enough these past years already. Haing sighed. Your Highness, you've spared no effort these years. Your Highness and Crown Prince know your devotion and will rest in the underworld. How can he rest? The nation isn't a nation. Yuan clan's lands are in the hands of another, and I couldn't do anything. Imperial Father, Big Brother, they'll never know rest. Second Prince started shedding tears. It's because I'm too weak to get back the ancestors' lands. It's I who failed in earning Imperial Father and Big Brother's deep love. Second Prince sobbed. making He Ying shake his head as he waited to meet his doom. This was the only way to repay his two masters' care. However, there was an odd sound, and the two suddenly slowed down before finding themselves afloat in pitch blackness. The two were stunned and looked around. I am one of the 10 ancient emperors, Emperor Yun's remnant, sent by her to guard my clan. Are you the sons of my clan, coming to pay your respects? A deafening voice rocked their ears, threatening to blow their eardrums. A white image hundreds of meters wide appeared. He looked like an aged immortal. With power and wisdom, he had silvery flowing hair, a white beard, and a deep and profound aura. The entire void was filled with glittering stars. The next second, flowing in a mystical pattern, the two stared agape at the display. Who's he? He's like a god walking on this world, holding everything in his palm. He can't just be a damn human. Skipping over Zhuofan, have they ever seen someone so awesome anywhere on this continent? Even Dan Qingcheng couldn't hold a candle to this guy. Yun clan's ancestral home hid such an astonishing expert. I can't frickin' believe it. Emperor Yun frowned. If you are my descendants, you may take refuge with me from any difficulty. If not, trespassers shall be forever buried in my clan's forbidden land to atone for your crimes. What? The two cried out. Only Yun clansmen could come here. If they wanted to live, the two were frantic, with the second prince having no shame as he said, Ancestor, I'm from the Yun clan. I'm Yun Yong. He Ying's face twitched and he sighed. This guy changes tunes too fast. He even renounced his name. Then again, being chased for so many years, he lost his arrogance as a prince. All he ever cares about is survival, even using a sharp tongue. Ancestor, I'm also from the Yun clan. I'm Yun Ying. He Ying cupped his hands. Emperor Yun mocked. It doesn't matter if you say you are. I will be the judge of that. Emperor Yun's eyes shot prismatic lights as it scanned the tube. Humph. My Yun clan have mystic eyes that can read the heavens. Yours are normal, and you think you can pretend to be of my clan? After the scan was over, Emperor Yun snorted. Common fools, die for trespassing in the Yun clan's forbidden grounds. The pitch-black world began to burn, as stars started falling on the two. Thousands of city-wide bright lights were coming down on them at full force. With so many coming to plaster them, there was no way two puny, profound heaven experts could take it, not when even ethereal stage experts would have a hard time. The two panicked in fear. Fortunately, the thick and impenetrable skin second prince grew over these torturous years in search for revenge was finally put to good use. Wait, we are just Yun clan's average clansmen. Only the clan head has awakened those eyes. Humph, wrong. Not just the Yun clan head is able to awaken them. Only a Yun clansman who does is a true Yun clansman. Emperor Yun spat. My blood allows the awakening of a single person in every generation of my clan. That is my successor. Everyone else, even if from the Yun clan, is a stranger. Don't you know that only the clan head can come here? Even as Yun clansmen, you only came to your deaths. Emperor Yun finished, just as the incoming starfall was about to pulverize the two home invaders. Second prince gnashed his teeth and his eyes flashed. He took out Yun Xuanji's eye and said, We've come out of clan head's final wish. This is our proof. Whoosh! The stars halted and soon vanished. He Ying closed his eyes and shivered. Second prince's hands shook as well, waiting to be erased from this world. However, death did not come. He watched as a pair of eyes stared down at the orb in his hand. It's the mystic eye of my Yun clan. But since it's just proof, I can only agree to one request. It won. Startled, the two were jubilant. They turned it all around. Emperor Yun switched from being their greatest enemy to their strongest backer. That was just too sudden. Didn't he doubt where this eye came from? Though it worked in their favor. Why look for some Dan Qingcheng when we have this guy to raise the world? So the second prince bowed and whined, Ancestor, my empire has been taken by an evil spawn. I hope Ancestor will set things right. Help you restore the nation? Emperor Yun quirked an eyebrow. Second prince bobbed his head and the emperor shook his, denied. Why? Didn't you say you'll agree to one request? With your power, this will be as easy as breathing. Second prince complained. Emperor Yun said, I told you, I am Emperor Yun's remnant left by her to protect our clan and show it the path forward. I cannot leave, thus, I cannot help you. What can you do then? Second Prince was annoyed and shouted. Haing jerked and hurriedly pulled his hand. Master, don't get carried away. He can't leave, but we're here stuck with him. He's the boss, and you better not anger him. It'll be so easy to kill us like squashing bugs. Second Prince finally came to his senses and cupped his hands. Forgive me, Ancestor. I got carried away. I just want to know how you could help us. Read the heavens and show you the way. Ask your questions and I shall answer all I can. Emperor Yun's heavy words fell. Chapter 726. Back to the Sect. Chapter 726. Back to the Sect. Proofreader. Papatonks. He Ying's eyes lit up and held his hand out, pointing with a trembling finger at the Second Prince's ring. Catching his drift, the Second Prince showed a painting. The lands of our nation. Second Prince shouted, Ancestor, please tell me where the best in Western lands, Qingcheng, is. Can I find him? Emperor Yun's eyes shifted and became like the starry sky. The stars around him were on the move as well, releasing their aura and making the two home invaders step back in fright. Qingcheng is in the central area. You will find him in the imperial capital of the Sword Star Empire. He will fulfill your wish. The stars halted and silence once again reigned after Emperor Yun spoke gravely, but there was now doubt in his eyes. Something the two below were blind to. Second Prince cheered, Ancestor, is it true? Don't call me Ancestor. I have read the heavens and know you're not Yun clansman. I also know everything that your clan did. But I am but Emperor Yun's remnant and have to follow the rules. Since you brought the Yun clan's mystic eye, I have shown you the way. Emperor Yun's flat tone came. Second Prince's heart sank, and he was getting nervous. He only breathed easier seeing him still calm since he was a remnant. He had no feelings. If Emperor Yun was here, he'd be watching their entrails dripping down the walls after swatting them for trying to con him. Not that his little mind could figure that one out, thinking this big shot was nagging. So he bowed and braced himself. Senior, when will I be able to meet Qingcheng? That's your second question that I won't answer. You better leave. Eyeing them with a flat look, Emperor Yun flicked his wrist. A gale formed, and the two were blown away and were now kissing the ground in the most unpleasant way. When they finally woke up, they were shocked. Before them was a lofty mountain, with a peak hiding behind the clouds and snow high on its sides. Haing cried, Your Highness, how did we get here? How are we at the foot of the mountain? We've been climbing for 3 whole years. Second Prince sighed. 3 years of toil as we worked our way through dangers and lost trails. 1,000 died, 1,000 left, leaving only us to carry on. I can't believe that Emperor Yun would take us back down with a flick of his wrist. He's beyond monstrous. Haing nodded, never imagining one of the 4 pillars had such a freakish backer. If this freak could move, the world would be his oyster. Sparing one last long look at the snowy peak, Haing sighed. So many years, so many deaths. All but for a few words from an old man. This result, ha ha ha. That's more than enough. We now have a way to get revenge. Second Prince shouted as he strutted towards the central area. As the Yun clan's ancestor, his prediction must be right. We finally found Qingcheng and a way to regain our nation. Zhuofan, Luo clan, and the Old Third, you will all pay for stealing our land. Second Prince could practically see the glory of victory and taste it. Haing stared at him and followed in silence. Never mind. If revenge is all that's driving him, let him have it. Maybe when he sits on the throne, it won't be too late to tell him. Maybe he'll thank the Crown Prince then for this revenge. That was how these two loners walked forward to restore their nation, unaware as they left that Emperor Yun was still hovering in that black space. The doubt in his eyes only increasing. That's odd. His goal is to get revenge on the Luo clan, Zhuofan and his third brother. But the Luo clan and his brother's destiny are clear. Only Zhuofan's fate is unreadable. Can it be that he lives outside fate? That will make him a huge variable. Emperor Yun sighed and vanished, letting the darkness consume everything in this domain. 2 months later, Zhuofan's team was back before their sect at long last. Xia Wuyue, and the elders were waiting for ages. Ha ha ha, Wuyue. What a grand welcome I see. Fiend Yang laughed, as if basking in their adoration. Yet Xia Wuyue glared back instead. He flashed in his face and stomped bam. The resounding boom sent Fiend Yang flying like a cannonball. The ball of flesh sped through the air and smacked into a cliff, leaving a man-shaped hole in it. The disciples ready to celebrate with their elders stood stock still. Did we do something wrong? Why is the sect leader so pissed? Giving them a glare. He was filled with bloodthirst watching the cliff tumble down. Fiend Yang came out of the rubble, barking. For God's sake, are you a sect leader or a lunatic? We've risked our lives in the Double Dragon Manor for the sect's glory, and this how you repay me? What did I ever do to you? You got the nerve to ask? Xiaoyue snorted. 2 months ago you sent me a sending jade, telling me that you'll be back in 2 months, not giving me any details as to what happened. You got some nerve, making me unable to sit still all this time. You damn fatso deserve more than just a light kick. The others chuckled. So that's why. It's because of the sending jade that sect leader is pissed. He should know what happened at the Double Dragon gathering yet was kept in suspense all this time. Fiend Yang grinned. Oh, did I forget to mention it? Bullshit. How can you forget something so big? Even if you forget to write your will, you can never forget this. Xia Wuyue snorted. Talk? Did we lose so much that we got last place in the lower 3 sects? Is that why you didn't say anything? Yu Ling and the others giggled. They couldn't believe their sect leader had so little faith in them. He's sure to get the shock of his life. The disciples snickered. Fiend Yang was also grinning, though he was still mincing words. What do you think, Wue? Think your ass. Xia Wuyue glared, then turned to Zhua Fan. But the guy walked into the sect with some 2 girls shouting for 2 laborers. Zhua Fan pointed at the girls and said, Settle them in? Yes, Steward Zhua. The 2 bowed. Zhua Fan was yet to rule over the demon-scheming sect, but his word was law in the labor office. Above even the elders, the laborers got down to following his orders despite there being a throng of elders and venerables around. Even the sect leader on top, Xia Wuyue, was outraged. Zhua Fan, who said you can bring some foreign girls into the sect? That's against the rules. Just coming and going. Didn't you agree to let him go after all the fighting? Fiend Yang held his shoulder and smiled. Besides, the kid got most of the credit at Double Dragon Gathering. Letting him do whatever before leaving ain't much. Xia Wuyue was now interested and turned to face him. How did it go? What do you think? Fiend Yang quirked an eyebrow, starting the posturing all over again. Xia Wuyue's face twitched, and he clenched his fists as a scorching fire burned in his heart, a volcano ready to pop. Chapter 727, Sect Celebration. Chapter 727, Sect Celebration. Proofreader, Papatonks. Xia Wuyue squinted and the anger in his eyes burned hotter. Fatty Yang, better give me that explanation right now, or so help me. I'll make you suffer if you keep showing off, regardless of our friendship. Easy, easy, I'll tell you for sure. Ha ha ha. Fiend Yang smiled and whispered in Xia Wuyue's ear. Actually, we? What? Xia Wuyue was bug-eyed. Say that again. Ha ha, I knew you'd make that face. No one would believe our ever-cold demon-scheming sect leader Xia lost his cool. Laughing it up, Fiend Yang turned to the oldies, shouting, I'm saying that at the Double Dragon Gathering, we became the top middle 3 sect and brought home 10,000 sacred stones. Are you for real? The oldies were frozen in place, sporting a dumb and incredulous look as they looked at the disciples. The demon-scheming sect was but a lower 3 sect. How the hell did it get to being the top middle 3 sect? This is insane. Venerable Sure, the leader of the inner sect's oldies, was just as stumped. Never in their wildest dreams would they have thought this time's team would come back with any success, yet they didn't feel like celebrating. Feeling downcast, instead the Double Dragon Gathering team was made of elite labor office's disciples. It had nothing to do with the inner sect. That meant the labor office would become more valuable and more important now. He bet Xia Wuyue would soon use this credit to announce the labor office would receive all resources, while his inner sect would crumble. Venerable Sure, one elder spoke with worry. Venerable Sure said nothing as his eyes flashed with a calculative glimmer. No matter, there's fortune in disaster. We still have to play along. However, I must say that Zhua Fan is incredible. If he weren't the sect leader's man, I would actually admire him. Ha ha ha. Glancing at the calm Zhua Fan, Venerable Shur had a crafty smile. The others looked lost. Why is Venerable Shur praising the enemy when the sect leader is about to throw the inner sect to the curb? Xiaoyue was out of it for a couple of minutes after Fiend Yang's news. When he came to at long last, he glared and smiled as he grabbed his fat arm. Fatty Yang, is that true? You're not fooling around, are you? Who would joke about something so huge? Fiend Yang grinned as he cursed. Besides, your bug-eyed look at our strong disciples isn't becoming of a top middle 3 sect. Fiend Yang came to the disciples and put on a smug look, as if they got so strong all because of his dedicated training. Fiend Yin and Fiend Gue shook their heads. Kue Lang's sides stuck out their chests, of course, releasing their aura and pride. The others' faces twitched. They could not believe it as they watched the returned disciples with eyes as wide as saucers. They didn't look at it at first, but now they saw it. Just how long has it been? These little guys' strength is unrecognizable. Except for 3 in the 6th layer radiant stage, the other 9 were in the ethereal stage. Just what the hell brought on this miracle? Venerable Qi and Bai were ecstatic. 4 of those 6 were related to them. Bai Lian and Qi Long were their grandchildren, while Yu Ling and Kue Lang were their disciples. In one move, they had 4 extra ethereal stage experts under them. That was sure to make them look good as hell. They were also qualified to work for his faction. Consolidating their position, the labor office's oldies looked at these bright disciples with beaming smiles. Only the inner sect faction stood there glum from envy and embarrassment. This kind of credit never happened before. Yet it didn't have a damn thing to do with them. What none noticed was a pair of eyes from Venerable Shur's faction that never looked away from Gue Hu. It was Grand Elder. I was right in making you enter the labor office. You're now far sharper than before. Grand Elder smiled in pride. Hold on. Let's all calm down first. As the crowd became noisier, Fiend Yang started shouting. Everyone settled down and spoke seriously. People, our success at the Double Dragon Gathering, the great improvement of our disciples, are all due to one man. Labor Office's Steward, Zhua Fan. Roar. The oldies went wild again, looking at Zhua Fan in veneration. Even the angry Xiaoyue was now filled with joy. He made the best move of his life when he got this kid to the sect. For thousands of years and tens of sect leaders, finally, in his lifetime, the demon scheming sect had become the head middle 3 sect. This merit was monumental. Even the ever-cold Xiaoyue started smiling, although, in the middle of their excitement, Fiend Yang's tune changed. You should also know that desperate times call for desperate measures. These kids got to improve so much so fast through many deadly perils. Those that hadn't succeeded, well, you can tell what happened to them. Ugh. The rest now realized Fiend Yang's words. To get these guys to grow up fast, Zhua Fan used life and death to train them brave the danger, and one would become a worldly expert. Fail, and you'd be nothing but bones on the road. But weren't those casualties the babies of some oldies? This hatred was falling right on Zhua Fan. Fiend Yang said this to show Zhua Fan's feats. Without him training the other disciples, they wouldn't have gotten their flashy new rank. So he was also telling the oldies not to look for revenge. Your disciples died for the sect. However, while they got his meaning, some were still hit hard by the loss of their precious disciples. Xiaoyue turned heavy and said, before setting off, I had appointed Zhua Fan as my representative, bearing my power. His word was my word. If you're looking for revenge, blame me. I have said it already, Double Dragon Gathering is of grave importance to the sect, not a place where you can but in to gain some perks. They deserved their fate. But since the success has been so amazing, I'll be generous even to them for all their efforts. Sect leader is brilliant. Fiend Yang shouted and clapped. The oldies' grief had now become a sacrifice to the sect. Though all here knew even alive, those disciples couldn't do a thing at the gathering. Xiaoyue said this to be fair. As for being generous, how could one be to a dead guy? That benefit would be given to their masters, no? That is a token to soothe their hard feelings. The oldies were silent. Wasn't it obvious for one to give his life to the sect? So they bowed in respect. Sect leader is brilliant. Zhua Fan's pesky troubles were now washed away by Fiend Yang's timely intervention. It was the least he could do for Zhua Fan. He knew the grudges of demonic cultivators. Once he left the sect, he had no one to protect him from those oldies' revenge. So simmering down those flames of hatred before he left was perfect. Zhuofan got his meaning but didn't care. He only chuckled at Fiend Yang. As thanks for his efforts. Less trouble is always better. We'll be holding a sect celebration for having become a middle 3 sect, even the top one. We'll hold a feast for 3 days straight. Xia Wuyue saw that all was settled and got excited as he laughed. The rest cheered. Chapter 728, Testing Dangers. Chapter 728, Testing Dangers. Proofreader, Papatonks. I told you, when we fought the head of the 9 sects, Ultimate Clarity Sect, there were many dangers. Besides the best talent in Western lands, Wu Qingcheng, there was also that freaky Lin. TCH, that power was really scary. Even Zhuofan was tense. At that time, I was the most in danger as I told them how to face such a monster. In the main hall, all the elders and venerables attended. Wine flowed freely in these 3 days, and everyone had red faces and hazy looks. Except for the disciples who went on this trip, who were standing at the same table as them, the other disciples were feasting outside the main hall. Fiend Yang finally got to make use of his winding and drawn-out silver tongue as he retold the events of Double Dragon Gathering. The others were amazed. Hold on, Fiend Yang, you've said it 5 times already. But didn't you always say that Steward earned the greatest credit? Why does it sound like he didn't do anything while all the glory was thanks to your brilliant leadership? Is that how you got to the top middle 3 sect? And did Steward really beat Yi Lin according to your plan? Yep. Steward has the greatest credit, but that is one of a fighter, while I paved their way to success outside the ring with my plans and cunning. Ha ha, Fiend Yang's eyes darted all over. Still talking big, the disciples snickered, but remained silent. Fiend Yang sure likes to brag. I must admit, he even got them all looking amazed by his speech. Among the avid listeners, some were highly skeptical. How come we never noticed Fiend Yang likes to blow his horn? So they looked to another. Steward is what the fatso said true? Ugh. Zhuofan turned to see Fiend Yang giving him signals galore while pleading and shaking his head. Zhuofan ignored his nonsense. Sure is. Under Fiend Yang's bright leadership, we finally earned our spot as top middle 3 sect. We wouldn't have made it half as far without him. The rest gave the fatty an incredulous look. This guy's actually that good. He actually got to conduct all the fights. Fiend Yang stuck out his chin in pride. I'm the real hero here. Only the disciples shook their heads and sighed, while the 2 girls sitting across from Zhuofan were giggling to themselves. They've seen Shameless, but not to this level, showing off before the whole crowd. But since Zhuofan didn't care, the girls, outsiders, didn't poke holes in the fatty's theatrics. Did Elder Yuan return yet? Zhuofan asked Kuei Lang. Ever since he came back 3 days ago. He couldn't wait to find Elder Yuan to talk to him about the heart. He really needed an answer to his questions, because Qingcheng was waiting for his response in the Mystical Heaven sect. Yet there was no sign of Elder Yuan around. Some laborers said he's out on sect business. He'd be back in months, or maybe years. Zhuofan shook his head. Years? He could only wait for a couple of months. If he didn't get an answer, he couldn't give her a reply. He didn't know if Elder Yuan would even answer him, but he was the only one he knew that could cupping his hands. Kuei Lang spoke. Steward I just heard that Elder Yuan still isn't back. It's fine. While I wait for Elder Yuan, I'll have a talk with Xia Wuyue. Zhuofan sighed and walked out. Seeing him leave, they knew he was going to the sect leader for his freedom. They all sighed. Only the girls were cheerful, eager to have Zhuofan back. Yoning was crafty in this. Now she would take the credit before Luo Yunchang that she got Zhuofan home. We'll see if Miss Luo will be able to compete with me. He knock. Zhuofan went to sect leader's home and saw Xia Wuyue smiling. He looked at the green storage ring with a lost gaze, sometimes chuckling. He woke up when he heard the knocking. Xia Wuyue was startled to see Zhuofan outside his door and frowned. Zhuofan, you've done great in the Double Dragon Gathering. What are you doing here instead of celebrating? Visiting a miser. He took a seat before him like he owned the place, and Zhuofan pointed at the ring. 10,000 sacred stones has you looking so dumb? Xia Wuyue was ticked off. Just 10,000? Ha ha ha, you're talking as if you got more, just 2,000. You heard that. Fiend Yang likes to talk too much, so I had Fiending report instead. Xia Wuyue sighed and nodded. You're really something, kid. to get even the exalted to look at you, even making a special rank just for you and getting 2,000 sacred stones. Even if I don't officially make you the next sect leader successor, the entire sect would not sit still until they know it's you who will be sitting in my chair. Xiaoyue stared hard at Zhuo Fan, but he had no reaction. Xiaoyue, we talked about this. After the Double Dragon gathering, our deal is done. Going home? Xiaoyue's brow shook, his heart unsettled as he showed a sneaky smile. To what? The Luo clan? You mean to tell me demon scheming sect can't compare to a measly mortal clan? Ha ha ha. Having come back with so much merit, you will be the next sect leader after me. With the sacred stones, in a century, we'll become a true middle three sect. A tiny mortal clan would mean even less then. You will be king here. Now you're telling me being stuck as a butler for the Luo clan is way better? Zhuo Fan gave him a long look. Where I like to go is my business. No one can change that. You better not break your word, sect leader Xia. Xiaoyue said nothing, but his sharp eyes stabbed into him like daggers, but then he shrugged. Actually, letting you stay was thinking of your future. After being on Double Dragon Manor's list, you'd be going even higher. You might even be at the top of the Western lands. But since you're set on leaving, I won't stop you. Xiaoyue waved him off, looking disappointed as he sighed. People always work to better themselves. Yet I never saw someone so complacent like you. Zhuo Fan, you'll be sure to regret it. That's none of your concern. Zhuo Fan rolled his eyes and walked out just as he left. Xiaowu muttered to himself, ha ha ha, he left at last. The sect isn't big enough for the both of us. Sigh. Zhuo Fan, if you had shown the slightest interest in my position, Xiaoyue's eyes flashed with bloodthirst. Back at the feast, Zhuo Fan looked at the girls. Get ready. We'll leave right after the feast. So soon? Kuei Lang and the others were stunned. Zhuo Fan nodded. Xiaoyue was good at covering up his intent, but he was more than familiar with that kind of baiting. He was paying attention to every last word Xiaoyue said, and every meaning they had told him to leave, to not aim for the sect leader's position. He believed that if he showed the slightest interest in the chair, Xiaoyue would have went for the kill. He didn't know Xiaoyue's cultivation, and since this was the demon scheming sect, Xiaoyue ruled. Once a fight broke out, Zhuo Fan was at a disadvantage, so he honored his own word and left. As for Elder Yuan, Zhuo Fan frowned. Kuei Lang, though I'm leaving and no longer of the demon scheming sect, I hope you can do something for me. Just say the word, Steward Zhuo. Kuei Lang cupped his hands. When Elder Yuan returns, stall him, then send me a jade slip. I'll be here before you know it. No problem, Steward Zhuo. Kuei Lang nodded. Zhuo Fan stood up and left with the girls. But just then, a laborer rushed into the main hall. Halt. This is the Elder's feast. Disciples can't enter. One attendant barred his way. The guy shouted, I've come to give a message to Steward Zhuo. Elder Yuan is back. Zhuo Fan shook and frowned. Then he brightened up, just in time. Chapter 729. Advice. Chapter 729. Advice. Proofreader. Papatonks. Elder Yuan. Shouts were heard in the rundown area of the labor office as Zhuo Fan rushed to a shabby door. The door opened with a creak as a familiar figure greeted him. Elder Yuan sighed and patted his chest. Oh, so it's Steward Zhuo. What's got you so anxious? You're scaring this old man. I thought I missed giving out Wang Irma's pill. It's not that I didn't want to give him, but he did a poor job on his errands, and the executive punished him. Elder Yuan. Zhuo Fan cut him off and rolled his eyes. Elder Yuan scratched his head. Oh, right. Steward Zhuo is a man of ambition and has no time for trifles. Oh, I almost forgot. I heard that Steward Zhuo earned great credit in the Double Dragon gathering. You should be out there celebrating and not run here. Elder Yuan. I'm leaving. Zhuo Fan interrupted him off again, startled. Elder Yuan said, Leaving? Where? Home. Zhuo Fan sighed. I already talked with Xiaoyue. I have done my part, and the demon scheming sect is now a middle three sect. He also let me go. Is that so? Elder Yuan closed his eyes and sighed in disappointment. He's still. Elder Yuan, I hope to say my goodbye to you before I leave. You are the only one I respect in this sect, and the only one that understands me. Zhuo Fan looked at Elder Yuan's dark face and sighed. Also, I wanted to ask you an important question. I fear that only you can give me a good answer. Elder Yuan opened his eyes and smiled. He was no longer sad and was back to his kind self. Tell me then, if I can help Steward Zhua, then it's my honor. Elder Yuan is too nice. Zhua Fan bowed slightly and was a bit tense as he began. Elder Yuan, can demonic cultivators know love? Elder Yuan was stumped for a second. Why love you mean? Familial, friendship, or? The last one, Zhua Fan blushed. Elder Yuan shook his head. A love between a man and a woman is of course not possible. It's very dangerous. Why else do you think the demon scheming sect forbids it? I see. Zhua Fan felt disappointed inside. But then hope rekindled in his eyes. But someone said that how can you be emotionless if you never knew emotion? You must feel it before you can squash it. Who told you that? Dan Qingcheng. So it was him. Elder Yuan shook his head. He is the best in Western lands, but he is a righteous cultivator, unable to comprehend our demonic heart. Zhua Fan's heart sank because Elder Yuan had clearly shot down this theory. It would seem that his final answer to Qingcheng would be a negative one, but the old man laughed before he got too disappointed. The expert was right, though. No wonder he is the best in Western lands. He's gone far. Zhua Fan's face twitched. After being thrown in despair, he was brought back up. Elder Yuan, can you not toy with me? I'm serious here. But I'm not. It's you who toys with yourself. Since you already have your answer within you, why ask me? Elder Yuan teased. Steward Zhua, do you want me to say that there's no harm to your demonic path by feeling love? Zhua Fan tensed and bowed. Elder Yuan is wise. My heart is treacherous and I ask Elder Yuan to be the judge. An outside perspective sees much more. If this love will harm my path, then I will squash it. Elder Yuan's mocked Zhua Fan hesitated but nodded. Elder Yuan's side. If some youngster came at me with this question, I'd have answered on the spot. That love is taboo for demonic cultivators. Touching it will mean endless pain and torture from which one can't escape. The demonic path is cruel and emotionless and any feelings are its bane. But to you, Steward Zhua, I offer you one piece of advice. Let yourself go and accept it. Why? Zhua Fan was stunned. Elder Yuan shook his head. Because you're already caught in its grip. Instead of breaking it, take it all if you don't want to have a heart demon. Zhua Fan's brow shook in shock. Do you know why we, demonic cultivators, warn never to feel love? Elder Yuan asked Zhua Fan. Zhua Fan shook his head, lost. I don't know either. But after years of pondering, I think I have an inkling. It's not that demonic cultivators can't feel love, but it's better reserved for those advanced players to tackle. Zhua Fan was stumped. Elder Yuan continued. At the birth of the world, the righteous and demonic paths came to be. As the human heart has desire, it leads to two different ways to cultivate. The righteous path abolishes desire, to be one with the world, unshackled by any greed. While the demonic path is the opposite, experiencing endless desire through which to break the mortal coil and reach the Tao. In other words, righteous means to be above everything, while demonic implies sinking into it. This shows that the paths are neither good nor evil, but once you enter them, it's easy for desires to be born and end up at their mercy. This is a demon. By overcoming it, you reach Tao. So the demonic path means passing through the demon state to reach Tao. What we want to do in the end is to attain Tao. Because it's easy to be constantly tempted along our cultivation journey, we end up being demonic and earn such a bad name. But all those that achieved success in the demonic path are not demons, and certainly won't be like those four scheming demons, pillaging and killing at a whim, because they had gone beyond in their path and have come closer to Tao. Zhua Fan nodded as he understood it. He used to think the demonic path implied selfishness, but now he saw it was just prejudice. By becoming a demon and rising above greed, could one reach the Tao? Zhua Fan finally saw the path wide open before him. As for love, it's nothing by itself, but it's the most tempting desire from which escape is nigh impossible. Many demonic cultivators have been unable to distinguish love from desire and sink further and further, moving away from the Tao. That is why demonic cultivators are so ruthless when it comes to love, not getting anywhere near it. This is because it's hard for anyone to come back from it. To righteous cultivators, this is easier. They walk the path of abandoning all desire, neutralizing the desire and keeping them safe. Elder Yuan continued, but you must understand, nothing ventured, nothing gained. The world is cruel but also fair. The demonic path is filled with more pain than the righteous path, so when all these trials are overcome, the demonic cultivator would attain a higher level than a righteous cultivator. Zhuofan nodded. In other words, love isn't scary, as long as I don't let it take me. Ha ha ha, that's besides the point right now, since you're already in it. Elder Yuan pointed at his heart. Do you know what a demonic cultivator's greatest heart demon is? Regret. Since you're already taken by love, if you don't settle it, it will turn into regret and will be much worse. As to how you are to escape the maelstrom of love, that will be up to you alone. That's why I said that it is for advanced players only. A child has no place toying with it. But I believe you're the exception. I hope that even if you are taken over by love, you will be able to see your path, and not be like Qingcheng, almost collapsing because of it, consumed by revenge. Though he's also amazing, getting back on his path in the end. Haha. Taking a deep breath, Zhuofan nodded and bowed. Thank you for everything, Elder Yuan. I know what to do now. I can finally give her an answer. I feel so much better. Ha ha ha. I'm only speaking what your heart tells you. It might not be the truth. While there's a demonic and righteous path, the world has thousands of other trails. Who is to say that yours is the right one? That's why it's all up to you to do what you feel is right. Elder Yuan spoke heavily. Steward Zhua, your heart already had an answer but was conflicted under the traditional beliefs. That's why you came to me. But the closer you are to Tao, the fewer people there are understanding it. There will come a time when no one can explain it to you. You will only have yourself to believe in. My past experiences might not be the right path. You will know it when you walk your own road. Star-led, Zhuofan bowed again and said, I will take it to heart. Zhuofan left afterward. His next goal was mystical heaven sect. Seeing his light steps, Elder Yuan nodded and sighed. The child has his own road. But why do you keep losing yours, Wu Yue? Chapter 730. Help. Chapter 730. Help. Proofreader. Papatonks. Master, is it really impossible? Damn miscreant. Have you already forgotten that pain? Didn't that girl hurt you enough? No matter how much merit you've done for the sect, rules are rules. Sect leader won't budge in this matter, so just give it a rest. And don't even think about going to him with this, or you'll only make it worse. That time, even I can't save you. Zhuofan's heart was free, unshackled and light. He felt so carefree as he walked, eager to get to the mystical heaven sect. But then his ear picked up two familiar voices that caught his attention, Venerable Qi and Qingcheng. Even puzzled. Zhuofan would hardly ever but in someone's problems. But today he was in such a good mood, he walked right over. What's wrong? Why are master and disciple arguing? Oh, Steward Zhua. Qingcheng immediately bowed and Venerable Qi nodded in respect. This brat only knows how to cause trouble. He got a bit of merit, and it got to his head. He even forgot the last transgression that got him kicked into the labor office. Qingcheng looked ashamed and lowered his head. Zhuofan raised an eyebrow. Just what happened? Can I hear it? Qingcheng hesitated before giving Zhuofan a glance. Steward Zhua, you know already? It's my girl. Oh, because of you she's been detained in the mystical heaven sect? That's why Xin Xiaoyu threatened you in the Double Dragon Gathering, Zhuofan exclaimed. Venerable Qi's eyelid twitched, and he glared at Qingcheng. You actually gave up for an enemy in the Double Dragon Gathering? This is absurd. If the sect leader finds out, you'd be lucky to keep your life. Sigh. Damn vixens. Venerable Qi stomped in anger. Zhuofan waved his hand with a smile. Venerable Qi, there's no need for anger. Only the three of us know this. Besides, I'm also about to leave anyway. Thank you so much, Steward Zhua. Venerable Qi gave a deep bow then glared at Qingcheng, making him feel even more guilty. However, he still clung to one last thread of hope. Didn't we earn a great merit? Sect leader is cheerful as well. I think using this chance to ask him to use the demon scheming sect's glorious name to ask the mystical heaven sect to get my girl back. Bullshit. Venerable Qi snapped. The demon-scheming sect is against fraternizing. And you even expect he'd lower himself to the mystical heaven sect for a mere disciple like you? We'd be lucky if the mystical heaven sect wouldn't take advantage of our weakness and just let her go. But even so, our sect would have lost its name because of it. Venerable Qi's torrent of words smashed into Kuei Lang's ears, causing him to lose hope. And yet, he still looked at Zhuo Fan with a fixed gaze. His master couldn't help him. So now it was up to Zhuo Fan if he was willing to pass it on to the sect leader, even if a mere disciple. Zhuo Fan was the sect leader's confidant. Having gotten such a glorious win at the Double Dragon Gathering, putting the sect in the top middle 3 sects, the sect leader might hear him out when not even elders or venerables could get his ear. Zhuo Fan frowned, rubbing his chin. Your master's right. Let it go, or you'll only make it worse. Xia Wuyue doesn't care about anyone. He won't help you at all. In fact, he would fly into a rage and punish you. You're better off not mentioning it. Venerable Qi nodded like it was obvious, glaring at his disciple. See that? Even Steward Zhuo said it. Kuei Lang's face fell in despair. Although, Zhuo Fan switched topics with a crafty smile, getting someone out isn't necessarily done using the sect's name. I'm just about to go to Mystical Heaven Sect and fetch someone. You can just come along. Ugh. The two gave him dumb looks. Then Venerable Qi gasped, Steward Zhuo? Ha ha ha, if I won't do it, who else will? Zhuo Fan smiled as he looked above. I've been absorbed with the demonic path for years and have discovered many truths. That should make me a somewhat advanced player. No matter how deep you sink into the sea of desire, I shall not fear. Ha ha ha. The two looked lost at him. Zhuo Fan turned to Kuei Lang and said, What are you staring at? Come on. Mystical Heaven Sect had been a lower 3 sect for all these years and shouldn't have many sacred stones. I'll use the 2,000 on me to smash their face in and get those girls. One for you, and one for me. Zhuo Fan started walking towards the gate. Kuei Lang came out of it at some point and rushed after him. Steward Zhuo, why you're really going to give your sacred stones for my girl? Of course. Sacred stones are just invaluable things compared to people. Steward Zhuo, you're truly kind. I'll never forget this for as long as I live. No matter what happens, I will do anything you ask. Lighten up. We're just two guys bearing the same trouble. Though, there may be a use of you yet. Who knows? Ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan and Kuei Lang chuckled in the distance, leaving Venerable Qi dumbstruck. 2,000 sacred stones over 2 girls? This is such a waste. Their sect had at most 1,000 of those glittering baubles that had to last the sect for centuries. Yet now, this Steward Zhuo was going to squander twice that on some broads. Venerable Qi looked ahead as his face twitched and heart bled. No matter how loaded you are, you can't just throw it all away. Sigh. How can a nouveau riche understand the pain of poverty? Venerable Qi shook his head, unable to make sense of Zhuo Fan's actions, but also envious and admired him. Zhuo Fan was spending so much for his girl and was going to do the same for Kuei Lang. Such a nice boss was a rarity in this world. It's Kuei Lang's fortune to land such a boss. While theirs, Xia Wuyue, was stingy to the core, fighting for every scrap. He had no idea, though, that those 2,000 rocks were a drop in a bucket for Zhuo Fan while a life fortune to Xia Wuyue. Putting them side by side, one could see how one spent. Zhuo Fan, can we go now? At the demon scheming sect's entrance, Shuang'er and Yongning were waiting for him. Yongning asked, Brother Kuei Lang, you're coming along? Kuei Lang had a bright smile, but it was Zhuo Fan who said, No, he will only accompany us to Mystical Heaven Sect. Mystical Heaven Sect? We're going to get Qingcheng and then go home together. Zhuo Fan had a wide smile on his face. The girl's heart skipped a beat, but then smiled. Shuang'er found Zhuo Fan's look even more enchanting. No wonder I found your attitude off. You're no longer as depressed as before. So you have your answer for Sister Qingcheng. I've dragged out this question for far too long. Zhuo Fan sighed. The girls nodded, finally able to rest their intentions and be happy for him. The four were now on the road to Mystical Heaven Sect. Since Zhuo Fan said he'd answer Qingcheng half a year later, they were in no rush. In fact, Zhuo Fan was actually dragging his feet, as if nervous. This question had been on hold for almost a decade. How would he answer? How would she react? How would I react? These were all pressing questions to Zhuo Fan. Suddenly, Fan felt as if he was like a tense bride before her wedding. The girls giggled. The high and mighty Steward box when it comes to talking about relationships. The team had gone like this for a month, yet they were only a third of the way to mystical heaven. Sect, even Schwanger was starting to dislike this and pouted. We're not here to sightsee. If we go any slower, you'll miss your due date with Sister Qingcheng. Really? Fan let out a dry laugh. But how am I to answer her? All these years I've been so cold. Whoosh! A red figure came smashing down 100 meters from them, kicking up a cloud of dust. The group was stunned to see mystical heaven Sect's Danner, Qingcheng's junior sister, as he was going to Qingcheng. Fan had to mind her junior sister, no? So he rushed over to help her up. Danner, what's wrong? What happened? Fan? Danner looked in joy, then said, Why, you have to save Sister Qingcheng. Chapter 731, Qingcheng's Danger. Chapter 731, Qingcheng's Danger. Proofreader, Papatonks. What happened to Qingcheng? Fan hurriedly shook Danner's frail body, panting. Danner teared up, and Sister Ruahua, Qinger, they. Fan hardened. I don't care about them. Tell me now, what happened to Qingcheng? Fan was sweating as he stared down Danner until she was scared. Steward Zhua, let her speak. You're scaring the poor child. Qingcheng spoke and said to Danner, Little girl, tell us what happened. We'll definitely help. Danner looked at them and finally said, Sect leader wanted us 5 sisters to cure the young master's illness. What? Fan's face fell and gnashed his teeth. I knew the punk was born a cripple with lacking elements, but now I see even his brain is screwed on wrong. He dares to touch my girl. Sensing the seething hatred seeping from Fan, Danner was in shock from fear. Yet for some reason, his towering bloodthirst gave her a sense of safety. Qingcheng patted Fan's shoulder to cool him down. Just what happened exactly? Please tell us everything so we can save them. Well, Double Dragon Gathering nodded and began. After the Double Dragon Gathering, we got back to the sect. The day barely ended and some elders came to us in the dead of night to seal some of my sister's cultivation, then put them in a room with the sect leader and the young master. That was when we knew that the 4-element cycle array was all to heal the young master's illness for lacking elements. The only reason we went to Double Dragon Gathering was to test the limits of the 4-element cycle array, whether it fit the bill. Only in a life and death battle would the power of this array be brought out. The elder found it eligible, so they took our sisters to cure the young master. Schwanger hurriedly asked, Cure how? The 4-element cycle array relies on maidens with elemental constitutions to draw out their power and purify the young master's body to rebuild his elemental balance. Finally, Danner blushed as she spoke in a lower tone, using a maiden's blood to draw out the 5 elements and completely cure the young master. Bam! Fan's hand pulverized a rock nearby. In other words, the perverted young master wants Qingcheng's body? Not just that. Wiping her tears, Danner sobbed, It would be fine if it were just curing young master, since we were dedicated to this, and we've also seen young master grow up. Bearing some sacrifices to save him was acceptable to us, but I never thought. What? They all asked. Danner's sobbing grew louder. Young master actually sucked out all of Sister Qinger's spirit and soul. He was so scary. Qinger became a dried husk, and even sect leader looked shocked. This is a demonic art of stealing into further yang. The punk has turned demonic. Fan's brow shook. His teeth clenched. I fear that ever since that little town he's been like this. Ever since Yinamo drew him to the demonic path. But Yinamo is a demonic cultivator, and he's used in this matter. Unlike Xin Xiaoyu, who has no restraint, being so new to it all. So that's why. It's all Yinmo's fault. Shut it. Seeing Danner sobbing, Fan glared at her. The righteous path means to be above everything, to be an ascetic. One shouldn't fall prey to the demonic nature so easily. Yet desire has taken hold of his heart, and it was just a matter of time before he fell. Yinamo was only a trigger. It was his twisted heart who was tested in the end, and it was found lacking. Now whose fault was it? Danner's heart shook and closed her eyes in silence. Fan frowned and sighed. How are the girls? And how did you get out? Sister Qingcheng seemed to have seen this coming and was prepared. She held a poison pill in her mouth. The moment they force her, she would take it. She said she had an agreement with you 6 months later. If you weren't there after this time, she would do what the sect leader asked. If you arrived and gave her an answer, she would be able to rest in peace. And she's also protecting the others. Danner sobbed. Then we had our cultivation sealed. But we could still move. Sister Qingcheng seemed prepared since one day she took us to the permafrost cave. There was Senior Sister Han chinning in a wall there, and she broke through it to unseal our cultivation. We killed our way out afterward, but the elders blocked us. Only I managed to escape while the others got caught. What? Chinning? Kuei-Lang cried out. Danner looked at him and nodded. Sect leader Chinning was the previous wielder of permafrost. She should have been one of the girls in the 4-element cycle array, but after hearing of her sect rule violation 2 decades ago, for colluding with demonic cultivators, she was cast out. Why else would the sect throw away such a rare water constitution like hers? In the end, the sect leader had looked high and low for a replacement, thus coming with Sister Qingcheng. Chinning, Kuei-Lang's eyebrow shook. How is she? Danner shook her head. I don't know. After I got away, they were caught. But I believe Sister Chinning knew what was going on, so that must be why Sister Qingcheng was prepared. After all, Sister Qingcheng had been in contact with Sister Chinning ever since she came to the sect and inherited permafrost. Closing his eyes, Kuei-Lang shook all over, gnashing his teeth and showing his deep worry paw. Zhuofan slammed his heavy hand on his shoulder. Kuei-Lang started and looked at Zhuofan's dark and scary face. Is Han Chinning your girl? Zhuofan squinted. Don't worry, Qingcheng is smart. Since she can save one person, she can save many. In any case, without your girl, I would now probably be late to the rescue. I alone have no chance of getting 2 girls out. But now, since there's still time before the appointment, it's enough to send a team in and take down Mystical Heaven Sect. Kuei-Lang shuddered and looked at Zhuofan in amazement. Danner was also shaken up. Mystical Heaven Sect was one of the 9 sects in Western lands. While conflicts between them existed, an all-out war was out of the question. Not when it would draw Double Dragon Manor's attention. No one was about to take such a blame. Yet Zhuofan, in a fit of anger, didn't care about these things. Even if the consequences would be dire, that would be then. If he did not do this, he would regret it for as long as he lived. Zhuofan was seeping with bloodthirst, shocking everyone around him. Danner was even more dazzled by his aura. This guy's insane, but also a mover and a shaker. Whoosh! 2 elderly in white flashed before the group. In the 4th layer of ethereal stage, it's Elder Li and Elder Chong. Danner cried out in fear. The elders showed mocking smiles. Seeing Kuei-Lang was the strongest at 2nd layer of ethereal stage, they thought they were easy pickings. Danner, you dumb girl, did you really think you could escape Mystical Heaven Sect? Bam! One elder looked at her with contempt, yet he did not finish as the sky was filled with blood. Gone was his presence, as was his irritating voice. In his place was a huge scarlet dragon, Zhuofan's almighty Scarlet Dragon King. Its sharp claw clenched the tenderized flesh, spreading the bloody smell as it squirted. What blood it had left on that dragon was Zhuofan, and his cold, dead eyes. In a singular strike, he wiped a 4th layer ethereal stage expert off the face of this world, destroyed in body and soul. The other elder was close to having a mental breakdown. Danner was standing there in shock at Zhuofan's action. She knew Zhuofan was strong, but she didn't think he would let anger take him to the point he would not let the others even speak. It only showed how much Qingcheng's plight grated on his nerves. Heaven Dragon Soul, almighty Scarlet Dragon King. The elder looked on in shock, shaking all over. Why, you're the one young master talked about. The freak at the Double Dragon Gathering, demon scheming Sect. Zhuofan. Smirking, Zhuofan mocked. Right in one guess, though I have no prize for you. Bam! With another loud noise, the almighty Scarlet Dragon King's other claw slammed down, crushing him before he even got a chance to wail. His guts and everything sprayed all over the place. Chapter 732, Charisma. Chapter 732, Charisma. Proofreader, Papatonks. Whoosh. With the 2 pursuing Mystical Heaven Sect elders dealt with, Zhuofan took back his soul and used a sacred stone to set up an instant concealing array around the group. In a blink, all of them vanished from sight, You guys wait here and don't move. I'm going back to the sect for help. Zhuofan gave them a quick look, then left. Qingcheng suddenly said, Steward Zhua, sect leader will never agree to go to war with mystical heaven sect. It's of no consequence. I will bring our people. Squinting, his eyes flashed. Zhuofan's heart had a plan in motion as he flew for the demon-scheming sect. Qingcheng, I'll leave the girls in your care. Don't worry, Steward Zhua. I will do my duty. Qingcheng cupped his hands, sighing inside. Steward Zhua, please find a way to get Miss Chu and my girl. It's all up to you now. Whoosh. Half a month later, Zhuofan was back in demon-scheming sect. With a sign, the space warped to show an entrance. Halt. Who goes there? One disciple popped before Zhuofan, but upon recognition, he jerked back and apologized. Ah, Steward Zhua is back. Forgive my rudeness. It's fine. Zhuofan waved him off. The disciple scratched his head. Thank you, Steward Zhua. That brat kept saying Steward Zhua has left the sect and won't be coming back. It made me so sad these past 2 weeks. Aren't you back now? Ha ha ha. You really missed me? Zhuofan raised an eyebrow. The disciple instantly nodded. Of course. It's all thanks to Steward Zhua that we, laborers, no longer live as cattle. You brought us hope for tomorrow. Although now it's different and I don't have the strength to enter Steward Zhua's elite labor office, at the very least I have a future now. I will definitely join next year. Ha ha ha. Good for you. Zhuofan patted his shoulder with a smile. How many others share your thoughts? Startled, the disciple was still honest. Steward Zhua, all of the labor office is immensely grateful for all that you've done for us. All those inner and outer disciples that entered elite labor have gained a lot from it. I believe that most disciples and elders hold Steward Zhua in favor for doing so much for the sect. There's still some left? They're likely inner sect elders trustees. They must be hating your guts. Ha ha ha. The two burst out laughing. Zhuofan nodded and turned serious. Then, how many of you are willing to help me with something? Steward Zhua, you need but say it and we'll brave any dangers. The guy cupped his hands. Good. Is sect leader around? Zhuofan nodded and plotted as he walked for the inner sect. Ha ha ha. Steward Zhua, this is because of your feats. The guy sighed. Sect leader has been very busy lately and has no time to stay at the sect. Ever since you shone at the Double Dragon gathering, many empires want to throw their lot with us. They even want us to move in with them, something only the superior 3 sects can do. Sect leader has been so happy these days, always moving from one empire to another for talks. Zhuofan shook and turned his head back with a devious smile. So sect leader isn't home? That is the case. The disciple gave a numb nod, grinning wider. Zhuofan laughed. Perfect. This makes it easier. Zhuofan strutted forward for the inner gate, leaving the disciple scratching his head. Steward Zhua is acting strange. Dang. A bell toll was heard throughout the sect. All elders and venerables jerked at the sound, rushing for the main hall. For God's sake, who the hell is the fool to mess with the bell and call for a meeting? The Double Dragon gathering is over, and it's only been 2 days since last time. What's so important this time? One elder grumbled as he dragged himself over to the hall. A venerable came to him and mocked. Are you stupid? The sect leader isn't around. Only the high venerable has the right to toll. But he has always been a simple man and never used the bell. Though there is one with the nerve to do it, venerable sure. The elder's mouth twitched. Their inner faction had been losing all the time. We, from the elite labor, are twice as many as them. Yet he still has the never to make a fuss? Is he after a power play now that sect leader isn't here? The venerable shrugged. Who knows? Ha ha ha, one thing's for sure. He doesn't have the strength. All oldies were going towards the main hall filled with doubt. Venerable sure frowned in his home. Next to him was his prized disciple, Lucia. Lucia, did you make contact with him? Venerable sure muttered. Lucia spoke in earnest. Master, they have all agreed and await something to happen here. What can happen when they all run off? Venerable sure mocked. It looks like there are still people out there unconcerned by fame and fortune, shirking off their merits. Zhuofan, that's mighty noble of you, leaving after your big win. Do you not care about your career? Or is it that you sensed the danger around you and made the logical choice? Venerable Shure's eyes shone as he sighed. He had been waiting for the moment to act for so long it made him depressed. Lucia was also helpless. Shuafan has always been unexpected and unpredictable. Dang. The clear sound of a bell echoed out in the courtyard. Venerable Shi raised an eyebrow and looked at the inner sect with a frown. That twerp Siawuyua isn't home, so who dare toll the main hall's bell instead of me? Venerable Shi's eyes shone. Maybe this is the chance we've all been waiting for. The two rushed over in the main hall. There was now a sea of people. All elders and venerables had gathered, all looking stumped at the man in center. He tolled the bell. Elders and venerables of demon scheming sect, have all of you come? Zhuofan looked at them with a cold eye. Ugh. They all started, with venerable by looking at Zhuofan curiously. Steward Zhua, what is this? Only the sect leader and high venerable can toll the inner sect bell. Though they had been some using it without permission in the past, you're still a disciple. If you need us to do something, you could have just asked and not made a scene. He, venerable Bai, who are you talking about here? One elder of Venerable Shi's faction barked. High Venerable hardly interferes in sect matters and goes where he wants. For Venerable Shi to come forward is only natural. What's wrong in him tolling the bell? Isn't it above his status still? What's hard to understand? He schemes for power. Venerable Bai mocked. The other elder was enraged. Zhuofan held out a bright badge, with Xia written on it. Is this authority enough? Sect leader's badge? The oldies shook and bowed. Greetings, sect leader. Zhuofan was akin to Xia Wuyue holding that badge since Xia Wuyue wasn't home. It left Zhuofan room to weasel in. Elders and venerables of the demon scheming sect must obey sect leader's orders. They all bowed and none dared refute him as Zhuofan shouted, Demon scheming sect's elders and venerables will now listen to my commands, or they will be punished by sect rules. Yes, sir. The crowd bowed again. The entire sect is to come with me to Mystical Heaven Sect. What? They all looked at him in shock. He wanted everyone to go to Mystical Heaven Sect? What for? That would leave their sect empty and would cause God knew what by going into another sect's turf. Everyone was hesitating. Is this sect leader's true intention? Even Venerable Qi and Bai, people on Zhuofan's side, were looking lost. Only one person looked joyfully at Zhuofan on the highest chair, Venerable Shi. He, Zhuofan, you're back at last. The bigger the noise you make, the better. Allow this old man to lend you a hand as well. Venerable Shi grinned like a winner. Chapter 733. All the King's Men. Chapter 733. All the King's Men. Proofreader. Papatonks. What's going on here? Who tolled the bell? Acting like he just showed up, Venerable Shi looked tense as he walked in front, seeing his elders were also here. One came before him and pointed at Zhuofan. Venerable Shi. Zhuofan holds the sect leader badge and rang the bell, convening this meeting. Now he wants everyone in the sect to march for Mystical Heaven Sect. What? Venerable Shi looked deeply at Zhuofan, then at the badge. Zhuofan gave him a cold look. He knew that Venerable Shi was the boss of the inner sect. Even though Xia Wuyue was the sect leader, he was still being contradicted in cases, which made it even harder just by having his badge in this case. If he was blocked, he would just have to set Venerable Shi as an example for the rest of them. Zhuofan's eyes flashed with bloodthirst while the oldies looked at his defiant gaze with mockery. You're just a mere disciple with a bit of merit to your name. Even if you're sect leader's right hand, not even sect leader himself would be able to do what he wanted if Venerable Shi was against it. Wanting to use some piece of wood to cower us? You don't know the power of the inner sect by the looks of it. Venerable Qi and the others from the labor office watched while calculating gains and losses. If Zhuofan was going against Venerable Shi, they would side with him. Although Zhuofan's order was casual, it had deep implications and should be treated with care. But he had sect leader's badge and was also labor office's representative, be it in a vie for power in an empire or the clashes between sects. It always came down to following the one that adhered to their goals. Zhuofan was the rock of the labor office. So no matter how ridiculous his request was, they would back him up. This was a fight for interest. The hall was split in two groups on the spot, glaring at each other as they were on the brink of war, plunging the sect into a bitter fight. However, Venerable Shi's action left everyone shocked. Both factions stared at him in stupefaction, bowing before Zhua. The badge, Venerable Shi spoke with utmost respect. Greetings, sect leader. I obey your order. Venerable Shi, his faction looked at him lost. The same for Labor Office's side. What's with Venerable Shi all of a sudden? Why did he cave so soon when he always fought tooth and nail with sect leader? Is Zhuo Fan's aura so grand that it shook him? Everyone's mind was thrown for a loop at the sudden development glaring at them. Venerable Shi spoke earnestly, impudent. Zhuo Fan carries sect leader's badge, which makes him the highest power beneath sect leader. His words are sect leaders. How dare you defy his orders? We won't. They all hung their head. Zhuo Fan and Venerable Qi's side were filled with doubt. Did he wake up on the wrong side of the bed this morning? Ignoring their puzzled gazes, Venerable Shi smiled. Ha ha ha. Since this is sect leader's will, we can only follow it. Only, we can't leave the sect empty. May I leave a few inner sect elders and disciple to defend it, Steward Zhuo? Eyeing him, Zhuo Fan nodded. He didn't want to take them in the first place. Only Labor Office's elders, or if they came as well, it might spell trouble at the worst moment. Though Venerable Shi's attitude was very peculiar. Queer in fact. Why is he helping me for a change? Frowning, Zhuo Fan looked dead in the weasel's eyes, pondering and finally letting it go. Time was no longer a luxury right now, all right? We'll do as Venerable Shi said. The inner sect elders and venerables shall stay behind while Labor Offices will follow me. Zhuo Fan nodded and boomed. Everyone nodded and bowed in response. Venerable Qi's team had their doubts, but now, to support Zhuo Fan, they kept silent. Since even Venerable Shi, who was always against us, didn't make a fuss, why should we? So, Zhuo Fan led the oldies group as they walked out of the main hall with great fanfare. Soon, the entire sect was in a clamor as the disciples gathered to set off. Watching the lively scene, Venerable Shi had a nasty smile. An elder next to him frowned. Venerable Shi, why would you allow such a serious action? It's because it's so serious that we must let the kid do it. I can't let him run off again without stirring things. Ha ha ha. Venerable Shi stroked his beard, his eyes glinting. Getting rid of him alone isn't enough. We must remove the elite Labor Office down to the root as well, or they would just rise again and we'll regret it. Now that he's asking for it, we should further his manic plans and let him destroy himself. The others frowned, with only Grand Elder able to see the wisdom in it and shaking his head. The kid has done it this time. Demon Scheming Sect's disciples had their orders and soon gathered. Qingcheng and Yuer were obviously there. Since they were the closest to Zhuo Fan, soon there were tens of thousands of disciples at the ready. Zhuo Fan looked around before setting off with all of them. The entire Demon Scheming Sect was now empty and eerily silent, with only 100 elders holding down the fort. 2 weeks later, Qingcheng and the girls were tense, waiting for news from Zhuo Fan. Seeing how another month passed, the four were tense about Qingcheng and the others' fate, as well as if Zhuo Fan would be able to bring any help. Rumble. The sky darkened and thunder rolled. The black clouds loomed overhead, reflecting the downcast mood they felt inside. It was so oppressive it was hard to breathe. Looking above, those were not clouds but a sea of people that came right for them. The one leading them was none other than Zhuo Fan. Qingcheng cried out, "Heavens above! Steward, we got the entire sect to come? Why are there so many people here to get our girls? How high could Zhuo Fan even be in the Demon Scheming Sect? Your sect leader is willing to fight Mystical Heaven Sect all because he asked?" Demon Scheming Sect looked stunned. The other two girls were excited. Across all Western lands, only one man had such a charisma to get so many people to move. Zhuo Fan. Not that others lacked the power, but none were crazy enough to go to such lengths as attacking a sect for a girl. None but Zhuo Fan. Whoosh! Zhuo Fan led the descent. Qingcheng's group rushed over with gratitude. "Steward Zhuo, your name is so widespread and heavy that sect leader gave you such force. I am in awe of being able to follow someone like you." Zhuo Fan, however, made a gesture for him to keep silent. "Keep it down. This isn't Xie Wuyue's doing. Luckily he was away and I could bring so many." Qingcheng's scalp was numb also. "These guys don't know why I've brought them yet. So don't say anything and leave the explaining to me." Zhuo Fan grinned at the four, yet they were all shell-shocked. Qingcheng was even shaking all over. "Steward Zhuo, you didn't tell them anything and still brought them? When they find out we're going to save our girls, Won't they turn on us? Kuei Lang felt like crying. I can even see my master over there. His master was against being with Han Qianying, and he was wondering just how pissed off he'd be once he found out he was here just to save her. Zhuo Fan patted his shoulder. Do you want to save her? I do. How much? With every fiber of my being. Kuei Lang spoke heavily. Zhuo Fan nodded and smiled. Then leave it all to me. With a wise look in his eyes, Zhuo Fan turned to the elders and released his mighty aura. Seeing him so high and mighty, Kuei Lang finally realized that he was unlike any of them. They were still hesitating even if they wanted to do this, while Zhuo Fan was a man of action and determination. That was why he, as a mere disciple, led most of the demon-scheming sect's elders and venerables. Chapter 734. Join Forces. Chapter 734. Join Forces. Proofreader. Papatonks. Cough. Clearing his throat, Zhuo Fan looked at the elders and venerables, his face hard and dead serious. People, we'll stop here for now. I have to make you understand why we're going to Mystical Heaven Sect. Everyone get ready and prepare for action. They all frowned at how he spoke. They already found the fact he got all the experts from the sect strange. But Zhuo Fan's hard look seemed to show this matter had far more implications than he let on. They all looked at him, tension clear in their expressions. We're going to Mystical Heaven Sect too. Zhuo Fan squinted and shouted, Attack? To teach them a lesson. What? They cried out instantly at such a preposterous idea. Venerable by even refuted. Steward Zhuo, that's going over the line. The 9 sect scuffles are minor, but to attack a sect like this without justification is criminal. The Double Dragon Manor will definitely intervene at some point and will punish us. None of us can take such blame. Not even sect leader. Zhuo Fan scratched his nose. Justification? Did grabbing girls sounded better? Who the hell would risk their lives then? Steward Zhuo, is this really sect leader's intent? Venerable Qi looked at Kuei Lang and figured something out. If sect leader has no real reason, it's best we go back. It's not too late. If we go now, none of us can take on such a heavy responsibility for what may come. Venerable Qi looked long at Zhuo Fan as he advised. He was reminding Steward Zhuo, a mere girl ain't worth going crazy over. We can still turn back. Let's pretend that nothing happened before we lose more than we can afford. Venerable Qi didn't expose Zhuo Fan's intent as a huge gesture of respect, but would Zhuo Fan balk so easily? Zhuo Fan huffed and glared at them all. Do you know why I never stated the reason back in the sect? It's because I feared Venerable Shi's lies would block the attack on Mystical Heaven Sect. Why? Because if they lost this battle, they would lose everything. We, however, aren't afraid, because we came from nothing and everything will be earned after. It's never in the now. They all shook and looked on with serious faces. The laborers were even echoing him. Many things had happened in the Double Dragon gathering, but I did not let the 3 venerables speak of them, out of fear that you would be impulsive. With a drawn-out sigh, Zhuo Fan continued with a crestfallen tone. Actually, our achievements could have been higher. But because of Mystical Heaven Sect schemes, we suffered in singles, losing our chance to be a superior 3 sect. That really happened? The oldies whispered among each other in anger. Zhuo Fan-eyed Fiendyang, shouting, Venerable Fiendyang, isn't that so? Why yes, startled. Fiendyang bobbed his head. Though Zhuo Fan had deliberated with the team on this matter before, to report only the good news for a greater achievement, yet Zhuo Fan had now used it as an excuse to get Qingcheng. He was going to do anything to instill hatred into these people and save his girl. Fiendyang had no clue about this, so he just agreed with a dark look. Zhuo Fan gnashed his teeth. Sect leader was enraged when he heard the dire consequences. Mystical Heaven Sect is a lower 3 sect like we used to be. Now that we're about to be a real middle 3 sect, are we about to stand their humiliation? That's why sect leader sent me a month earlier to return the favor, to show off our sect's power. Having seen Steward Zhuo's light, they now knew he didn't leave for the secular world as it was said, but because of sect leader's order. But just as I got to Mystical Heaven Sect, something grave happened. Zhuo Fan's tone shifted. They want to combine with Heaven Trailing Sect. This will raise them above the middle 3 sects' power, just so they would suppress us from the shadows. Hearing this news, I rushed to report to sect leader. In this time, There were even 2 elders who came to silence me, but of course I killed them instead. What? The oldies exploded in rage. Mystical Heaven Sect was too damn presumptuous, leaving Double Dragon Gathering schemes behind. Sending elders to kill our greatest contributor must be punished. Do they think demon scheming sect can be messed with? Seeing their anger, Zhuofan grinned on the inside. Sect leader was also furious hearing of this and wanted to deal with them personally. But you all know sect leader is holding talks with all kinds of empires. If we get pushed back because of 2 sects, it will affect our name. That's why sect leader had me make the first move. Since we can't win heaven trailing sect, that doesn't mean we can't touch its little bro. So sect leader gave me his badge, leaving me in charge. Even if Double Dragon Manor would punish us, we have to fight for our name. We are a middle 3 sect now, not something a lower 3 sect can mess with. This fight will establish us among the middle 3 sections. As long as Mystical Heaven Sect isn't destroyed, what's so grave about some punishment? I would even return the 2,000 sacred stones if I had to, just to preserve our name in the Western lands. Steward Zhua is truly honorable. If you do it, how can't we? Let's mess him up. The crowd cheered with a roar, ready to go kill their way into Mystical Heaven Sect. Kue Lang had a dumb look on his face. Steward Zhua's wild boasting had the sect's elders thirsting for battle. Now even if sect leader shows up, they won't stop either. Just how did these shrewd old guys end up taken in by Zhuofan's words so easily? That was because Zhuofan had preyed on their minds to get someone to give their life for you. Benefits were a must. Pillaging Mystical Heaven Sect. On the other hand, there was also a need for a reason. Sect leader's order was the perfect excuse, while also making him the scapegoat. Zhuofan even said he would return his sacred stones if he had to. It showed he'd take the blame as well. And finally, focusing their anger on a common enemy, getting everyone roaring to go everything when his Zhuofan wanted it to. He got every oldie on board, even if they had some doubts because Zhuofan had smoothed over their worries already. Now all they had to do was follow Zhuofan into battle and get those girls back who. Zhuofan eased a breath and sported a strange grin. Danner was stumped. This big talker actually got this motley crew to save someone. Even I would have believed him if I didn't know something about this. Ha ha ha. Venerable Qi shook his head. Fiend Yang's brow shook. Wasn't that badge used to be the leader in the Double Dragon Gathering? How did it become Wu Yue's proof to attack Mystical Heaven Sect? Fiend Yang was perplexed. The disciples who went to Double Dragon Gathering were also aware of the gaps in that glorious speech. But they were on Zhuofan's side. The previously puzzled demon scheming sect's crowd was now united under a single thought: to kill. All that was left was to get to Mystical Heaven Sect. Seeing as he could not stop Zhuofan, Venerable Qi proposed a valid point. Steward Zhua, Mystical Heaven Sect is mostly the same size as us, but we are now going without everyone and are about to attack their home ground. It'll be hard to beat them behind their array. The people stopped being noisy and frowned. True. Zhuofan's brow shook and grinned. He turned around to look at a black cloud coming over, led by a familiar figure. Brother Zhua, we've come to help. Who? The demon scheming sect's people looked up to see the sky covered by a throng of men as they flew over. In the lead was a man in his 20s, filled with vigor and regal. Zhuofan's features softened as he smiled. You've grown, Yunhai. Brothers have come to answer the call. Zhuofan's eyes flashed and laughed. Ha ha. Now we have enough men. My 2 armies will join forces and win. Chapter 735. Young Sanzi came to help. Chapter 735. Young Sanzi came to help. Proofreader. Papatonks. Whoosh. Just like pitch-black rain, they all landed like a downpour behind Luo Yunhai. He came before Zhuofan in excitement. Brother Zhua, it's been ages. How have you been? All right. Zhuofan grinned and patted his shoulder. I'm relieved you've now grown into your role as clan head. You must be skilled now in leading the Luo clan. Luo Yunhai shook his head. It's all because Brother Zhua set the stage. With the 3 stewards minding everything, even as a clan head, I didn't have much worry. Ha ha ha. A clan head's greatest ability is to manage his people. If you'd micromanage everything in the clan, then you wouldn't be a clan head. A smile was splayed on Zhuofan's face. Those 3 are called the wisest 3 in Tianyu. It's clearly not for nothing. With them by your side, I had no worries. Luo Yunhai was worried though, but big brother Zhua, I always hoped you'd come back. I've always kept the Grand Steward spot empty for you. Even Steward Zhuge won't touch it. As for the other two, you got their positions set. When will you be coming back? I'll be a steward again when I return. Zhua Fan grinned at him. I'm currently soaring through the ranks, yet to come back down. Startled, Luo Yunhai blinked at Zhua Fan. Hee, there's another empty seat as well, my cis-husband. You could always. Forget it. It's better to be a steward. Zhua Fan shook his head. I already have a wife. I sent a jade slip over to call for help, just to save her then go back to the Luo clan. Truly? Luo Yunhai was overjoyed. Just then, a rough voice sounded from behind. Steward Zhua, you're coming back at last? We've waited ages for this. Zhua Fan looked up to see a very familiar face. His number 1 aide. Li Jingtian. He was already in the 6th layer of ethereal stage, bursting with power and might. His grand aura even forced the weaker cultivators back. Next to him was Qiu Yinhai, Shui Qingjian, the 2 sages and tens of others in the ethereal stage. While foreign to him, they all held Zhua Fan in high regard, elderly, everyone. Long time no see. I'm indebted to you for this. Zhua Fan cupped his hand before them, returning the gesture. They said, Steward Zhua, it's our duty. Thank you all. Let's rush to Mystical Heaven's Sect. Zhua Fan cupped his hands again and shouted. The Luo clan bowed and took to the skies, till the end. The demon-scheming Sect's crowd was in shock at such display. These guys only had around 40 ethereal stage experts, yet Zhua Fan only told them to fight and they obeyed. No questions asked. Not caring about their safety, the demon-scheming Sect had many reservations in this battle, yet they looked at Zhua Fan's serious face with a lost look, then sighed. They are Steward Zhua's clansmen. Of course they trust him. They didn't even ask for a reason to fight, only for Zhua Fan to tell them to. It went to show just how highly he was seen among them. No wonder Steward Zhua abandoned demon-scheming Sect's prospects to return home. This clan was worth it. Fiend Yang and Venerable Qi sighed. Dad. A childish voice came from the skies once more. The people looked up to see a red glow flash before them, taking the shape of a 7-year-old. Only this kid could fly, and from the faint aura he gave, he was definitely in the ethereal stage. All of demon-scheming Sect was shocked. How did this kid train? This is ludicrous. Only Zhua Fan and Luo clan knew that he was Tianyu's number 1 freak, invincible scamp Gu Santong. No matter how freaky and tough Zhua Fan was, he fell in 2nd place. Not that it mattered when they were practically related. Dad. Gu Santong landed right in Zhua Fan's arms, cheering. Zhua Fan smiled. Kid, you came at last. I thought the old guy wouldn't let you. As if. Even if Uncle said no, I'd just sneak out to help my old man. Gu Santong was so glad he was holding Zhua Fan in a tight and long hug. Zhua Fan was also happy to see him. However, the demon-scheming Sect was dumbstruck. A freak like Zhua Fan had a 7-year-old in the ethereal stage? His entire family is made of freaks. They could only sigh and shake their heads. Gu Santong pointed at the 2 sages. Why aren't you 2 dead yet? Last time you had me trapped real tight. Now you dare show your faces again before me? Let me just send you off then, permanently. Gu Santong was about to jump out of Zhua Fan's arms and straight at the 2. The sages tensed and fell back. Young Sanzi, they're with me. I also helped you by teaching them a lesson. It's all in the past now. Zhua Fan grabbed Gu Santong and explained, startled. Gu Santong turned to him, and only after a while did he nod. How smart of you. You're only alive for being on Dad's side. Humph. Snickering, Gu Santong raised his tiny fist at the 2 and the sage's side. Young lord, it's you who always messed with us. You're just as unreasonable as your old man. Scratch that, you're worse. The sages felt helpless before the duo bearing the same insufferable attitude. That's enough catching up. Let's see how we're going to attack Mystical Heaven's Sect. After pleasantries, Zhua Fan turned serious. Yunhai, how many did you bring? Luo Yunhai cupped his hands. The 4 tigers of Tianyu are defending the border. Elder Yin is handling alchemy, while the stewards handle the internal affairs. Except for them, Luo Alliance's entire power is now present. We have 50 ethereal stage experts, 5,000 in the Radiant stage, and 100,000 large flying tiger army. Demon scheming sects oldies clicked their tongues. For a mere clan to gather such force sure is a rarity. As our agent in Tianyu, he really is amazing, then we will make up for each side's gaps. Next we'll be crushing their home advantage. Zhuofan's eyes flashed and waved at the two armies to come and hear his plan. They all lit up and looked at him in stunned silence. 2 months later, in a dark room in Mystical Heaven Sect, the sound of the door unlocking was heard as the heavy iron door creaked open. A savage face was revealed. Yet he wore the lavish clothes of a gentleman. Xian Xiaoyu. In this dark place sat 3 girls, Qingcheng, Shui Ruohua, and a woman in her 30s, of soft skin and black eyebrows. Despite being pale, she kept her grace. Senior sister Qianying, is this really necessary? Xian Xiaoyu bore a twisted smile as he mocked. Your confinement will soon end. 20 years have passed, yet you still cling to this. You're unmarried, so I don't need you. Why must you cause such a scene? Glancing at him with a cold look, she spoke, Xiaoyu, I've watched you grow and thought you'd be different from your father. I was wrong. Your demons are worse than your father's. Your father loves his son dearly. Which is yours? My father, the sect leader, is your master. No? The way you talk is like you don't see him like that anymore. Xian Xiaoyu huffed and turned to Qingcheng's flawless beauty with intoxication. Everything I do is for love. Junior sister Qingcheng, half a year is almost up and he still hasn't showed up. You better hold your end. Don't worry, I won't suck you dry. I know restraint. I wish to grow old with you. Qingcheng's brow rose and she spoke flatly. He will come. Since he said he'll be here in 6 months, then he will be here. If he won't show, it's because you stopped him. I will always hold on until he comes before me. Humph. A demonic cultivator entering a righteous sect? Demon? Ha ha ha. Who is the real demon here, I wonder? Han Qianying mocked. Xian Xiaoyu was furious and clenched his fists, but he controlled himself. Then, a frantic disciple rushed over to report, Young master, there's someone outside the sect asking for you. He said he's Zhuo Fan from Demon Scheming Sect. Chapter 736, Arriving at Mystical Heaven Sect. Chapter 736, Arriving at Mystical Heaven Sect. Proofreader, Papatonks. Zhuo Fan? Xian Xiaoyu's eyes widened in shock. This manic demon dares to knock on Mystical Heaven Sect's door? The girls were startled and Qingcheng was smiling looking at her. Han Qianying smiled, Junior sister, your guy ain't bad. Just the fact he faces Mystical Heaven Sect alone shows he's worth it. But I'm not content. I want to see him and hear his answer. Smiling, Qingcheng sighed. Shui Ruohua looked on in envy. Junior sister, a man that cares for you will be with you forever. I believe his answer will be the one you wanted. Enough? Xian Xiaoyu snorted. Demonic cultivators are cruel. How can a damn demonic cultivator be fit to stand next to Junior sister Qingcheng? His flowery speech has duped her. I will never let her be deceived by such a shameless fiend. Shui Ruohua sighed. Junior brother, how did you turn out like this? So petty and greedy. You weren't like that before. I changed, you say? It's you who changed. You've always been cold like ice and against demonic cultivators, while now you let yourself be taken by the demonic path. Xian Xiaoyu's eyes turned bloodshot from anger. Even if you changed, it doesn't matter. I refuse to let Qingcheng sink any lower. Han Qianying watched his crazed attitude and sighed to Shui Ruohua. Junior sister, let it go. He's been taken by his demons. He's even worse than a demonic cultivator. He won't wake up. His father must know this as well. Yet what does he do? He still caters to his crazed son's whims yet says he purges demons? His son wouldn't have ended up like this if he hadn't pampered him to this extent. Sigh, his father has been overcome by his demon as well, or he wouldn't have dragged Junior sister Qingcheng into this. Mystical Heaven Sect has long since stopped being righteous. Shui Ruohua's heart was crushed, and she sighed. Mystical Heaven Sect was where she grew up, always being righteous as it was. But at some point, she noticed that it had turned rotten. Its glory, hiding a deep shadow more dreadful than a demonic sect. Her sadness only deepened. Xian Xiaoyu mocked. Junior sister Qingcheng, You really think I'll let Zhuofan go since he came alone to Mystical Heaven Sect? Or what, you'll detain him? Someone so important to demon scheming sect? Qingcheng sneered. Xian Xiaoyu gnashed his teeth. There are plenty of ways to keep him here. Don't underestimate me, junior sister. You can't beat him, and I advise you not to taunt him, lest you want your life to be over. Qingcheng spoke. Xian Xiaoyu's heart shook, then he was enraged. Her cold attitude showed how little she cared about him. He clenched his fists and came to a decision. Junior sister, you'll see. I will make him crawl like a dog before me. We'll see who's the final winner. Guard. Yes, young master. One disciple bow. Did Zhuofan come alone? Is there anyone with him? Xian Xiaoyu squinted. The disciple reported. Young master, there is one man with him, one called Kuei Lang. Kuei Lang? Isn't that senior sister Qianying's close friend? Ha ha ha. Xian Xiaoyu snickered at her. Senior sister Qianying, you were just praising Qingcheng's yearning, but yours isn't any humbler. Because of his love for you, Kuei Lang had abandoned his match with me in the Double Dragon Gathering, risking his sect's punishment. How else would we get to beat Demon Scheming Sect in singles? Now that he came waltzing in here like an ignorant fool, I bet senior sister must be wanting to see him too. Han Qianying shook. Xian Xiaoyu snickered. Don't worry. I'll make sure to leave his corpse for senior sister to bury. Ha ha ha. Xian Xiaoyu laughed as he left. The iron door closed shut behind him. Han Qianying clenched her fists, her heart a mess of joy and sorrow. Then she started blaming Kuei Lang. This foolish man, coming to Mystical Heaven Sect. But I'm relieved that he still remembers me after all these years. I didn't suffer 20 years in vain. Qingcheng smiled at her. Senior sister, rest easy. With Zhuofan around, he will be fine. That guy of yours is that amazing? Can he stand tall before Mystical Heaven Sect? Han Qianying asked curiously. She admired Zhuofan's courage, but she was still skeptical about his power. Mystical Heaven Sect was a sect after all, and he'd be trapped in its array once inside. How was he to protect Kuei Lang when he had to worry about himself first? She knew Zhuofan was revered in Demon Scheming Sect, but Xian Xiaoyu had become obsessed and would not care if the sects became enemies. Young master must be planning to get rid of them at all costs. Who will save them then? Qingcheng smiled to ease her worries. I know Zhuofan better than anyone, so relax. He never was one to lose out. I have never seen him lose in any of his fights. I believe he came prepared this time as well. Qingcheng's face was one of absolute trust. Han Qianying watched, stunned. Shui Ruohua nodded as well. Senior sister, I've seen Zhuofan as well. He's not normal. Kuei Lang should be safe with him. Han Qianying looked at them and took a deep breath to calm her heart. All she could do was pray that this unknown and mysterious Zhuofan would be capable of a miracle to keep both of them safe. Outside of Mystical Heaven Sect, an opening popped into thin air, followed by a disciple coming out and welcoming Zhuofan and Kuei Lang. Honored guests, sect leader welcomes you in his hall. The disciple was in the profound heaven stage. He bowed and spoke amiably. Zhuofan raised an eyebrow. Mystical Heaven Sect wants to play around? Huh? This is clearly a trap. Not that they were scared. Since they came willingly into the tiger's den, the two cupped their hands and Zhuofan spoke. Thank you for leading us. The disciple bowed again and took them in. Steward Zhua, they didn't attack outside because they want to get rid of all traces on the inside. They don't want to take any chances. Kuei Lang sent to Zhuofan. Zhuofan smiled and nodded, sending back, that's for sure. They went for the girls and know why I'm here. Since they welcome us in, it shows they want to kill us outright, not caring about the demon scheming sect. Then we don't need to hold back at all. But before we start, we must make sure the girls are safe. We can't have them using them as hostages. Kuei Lang's eyes flashed. They soon arrived at the flashy main hall. The disciple led Zhuofan and Kuei Lang inside. But on the main seat they saw an old man that was barely skin and bones with a hard look and dignified air. The disciple bowed. Greetings, sect leader. The honored guests have arrived. Leave us. Sect leader Xian spoke, and the disciple left. Sect leader Xian looked Zhuofan in the eye. It is you, Zhuofan. Does sect leader Xian know me? Zhuofan raised an eyebrow. Sect leader Xian nodded. 10 years ago, in Tianyu Empire, I chose Qingcheng to prepare for Double Dragon Gathering, while Xiaoyue chose you. I thought I had him pay a heavy price for you, but I was astonished to find out how much you shone in the Double Dragon gathering. Your name shook the Western lands. I can see that Sect Leader Xie's eyes were sharper than mine. Haha, Sect Leader Xian is too kind. Zhuo Fan smiled. This old bag of bones. What's with that heavy look? What Double Dragon gathering preparations? You clearly took her for your son. You think I don't know? Hypocrite. Zhuo Fan and Kuei Lang despised him on the inside. Chapter 737. Bargain. Chapter 737. Bargain. Proofreader. Papatonks. Sect Leader Xian's face was flat as he said, I can't help but wonder, what has brought you to my sect? Can it be that Sect Leader hasn't heard? Zhuo Fan raised a taunting eyebrow. Qingcheng and I come from Tianyu and have known each other since. I owed her a clear answer since then and never got to give it yet. At the Double Dragon gathering, I came upon a realization, so I had told her that I would give her an answer half a year later. Now I have come to fulfill that promise. Sect Leader Xian squinted and turned colder on the spot. Is it love? Oh, Sect Leader Xian is so wise to see it. Zhuo Fan nodded with a smile. Kuei Lang at the side had to hide his chuckling bam. Sect Leader Xian slammed the armrest in anger and jumped to his feet. Zhuo Fan, you're a demon-scheming sect disciple. If you're here on sect matters, I'm most open for discussions, but my sect has rules too. My disciples are forbidden from being friendly with demonic cultivators, especially about fraternizing. For you to mention this to me, are you perhaps doing it to mock my sect rules? Men, seize them. Yes. Sect Leader Xian issued his order, and the main hall was flooded with people from everywhere. All profound heaven disciples, Zhuo Fan sneered. Did this guy not hear about my feats at Double Dragon Gathering? When even ethereal stage experts were no match for him, what was he doing throwing small fries at him? Since so many came at a mere shout, it was obvious this was premeditated. This wasn't to capture them, but to force them to strike first. Sect Leader Xian knew killing demon scheming sect's best disciple, just from a mere offense, was the worst way to do it. He had to get this disciple to make the first move, by killing mystical heaven sect's people, and sealing his fate. The fact one killed their men, even in their own home, was inexcusable. Making it so killing him in turn was totally justified. Not even Double Dragon Manor might get involved. This sly dog wants us killed. Zhuo Fan squinted and just stood there. Kuei Lang looked calm as well, giving Zhuo Fan a look of admiration. It's all going as Steward Zhuo predicted. This old coot really wants to make us start killing. First is to lure us into a crime, then use experts to purge us for the demons we are. Thank God Steward Zhuo saw it coming, or we'd have started killing. Not so fast. Zhuo Fan shouted. Sect Leader Xian, you knew long ago why we're here. Why all the theatrics? Let's be blunt about it and talk business. Sect Leader Xian watched the two as the tide of people only surrounded them. He knew his plan fell through and waved. All of you leave. The disciples started, then receded as the tide, gone in a blink and leaving the three alone once more. You're worthy of your reputation in Tianyu Empire. To have your name echoing far and wide after Double Dragon Gathering as well, Steward was sure is something. Steward nodded. If anyone else would have come to me with this, I'd hardly care. But Steward, since it's you, I'm a little intrigued. What kind of business are you talking about? Zhuo Fan smiled. Sect Leader Xian, Mystical Heaven Sect has lost in the Double Dragon Gathering and hardly got anything. Haha, not that much. It's pretty much the same as always. With a sharp glint in his eyes, Sect Leader Xian noticed something. Zhuo Fan, where are you going with this? Nowhere, really, only considering Sect Leader Xian's position. Demon Scheming Sect and Mystical Heaven Sect have always been at odds. Demon Scheming Sect now has 10,000 sacred stones to grow. Mystical Heaven Sect only got 200. 100 years from now, Demon Scheming Sect will soar while Mystical Heaven Sect will be stuck. Even if there were more Double Dragon gatherings, do you really believe you have the power to turn it around? What are the odds of something like Demon Scheming Sect's sudden rise happening again? At that time, who knows what our sect leader would do? Zhuo Fan had an evil smile on his face as he looked at Kuei Lang. Getting a little bit of kick out of it, right? Ha ha ha. Steward Zhuo, you have a much too kind opinion of our sect leader. When the time comes, he won't stop there. He'll make sure none of those that offended him will ever return. Right, right. It's you who's been in the sect for longer and got his temper. Ha ha ha, Shuafan patted Kuei-Lang's shoulder. Kuei-Lang laughed, as well sect leader Xian's cheek twitched. Shuafan, just say what you want. Let's make a deal. His face back to being serious, Shuafan began. You know what I want. I got 2,000 sacred stones from the Double Dragon Gathering. Almost the same amount the last spot in Middle 3 sects got. If you have them and grow up fast, in the next Double Dragon Gathering you won't fall so far behind of demon scheming sect leader Xian's eyes lit up. He probed, You mean you're willing to give me 2,000 sacred stones? It's not give, but trade. Zhuofan squinted. We only want Chu Qingcheng and Han Xianying. Then these sacred stones are yours to do what you please with them. Quite the bargain. Sect leader Xian frowned, his heart filled stirred by all kinds of feelings, even as his face looked stone cold. You want me to give my disciples to 2 demonic cultivators just for that? What do you take me? Businessman? Zhuofan cut him off with a smile. You made a deal with Qingcheng the first time. Now I am the one making a deal with you. You had Qingcheng come to your sect for Double Dragon Gathering. Now it's over, and you didn't get to win much either. And now that I come to you with a losing deal on my part, you're not going to take it? Sect leader Xian's beard shook as he frowned. Using disciples in a deal is not the righteous path. But seeing how you're so willing, then of the two, just 1 inch. It's either both or the deal is off. We'll just leave and won't even take them. Demonic cultivators are cruel at the core, and we want the 2 just so we can ease our regrets. But if the price is too high, we'd rather not take it. Breaking emotions is a road we all must take. Zhuofan's eyes flashed, giving sect leader Xian no chance to haggle. Sect leader Xian knows that I only have 2,000 sacred stones on me. I also only want the 2 girls. From the start, our chips were called, and this deal can only have 2 outcomes. Please, enough with the games, sect leader Xian. You're looking down on our sincerity. Amazing. Sect leader Xian was dumbstruck, but then he sighed. Men, bring Qingcheng and Xianying. Yes. One disciple outside the doors shouted and rushed to comply. Zhuofan and Kuei-Lang nodded and grinned. It all went perfectly so far. The old coot was taken in by the sacred stones. Easing a breath, sect leader Xian felt stuck. He discovered that ever since Zhuofan showed up, everything went his way. Being led around like this left him feeling most unsettled. Not even when talking with Xie Wuyue would he lose so much ground. Sect leader Xian was glum inside, so he said, Zhuofan, does Xie Wuyue know you're giving up 2,000 sacred stones for 2 girls? If sect leader knew, would we have reached here? Zhuofan smiled. We all know using resources on the enemy isn't good for the sect, but demonic cultivators are selfish. For our girls, we sometimes have no choice but to ignore the sect. Sect leader Xian nodded, just like I thought. Xie Wuyue has no clue about this. That's good. They came by themselves. That means they don't have demon scheming sect backing them. Even if I take the stones, then I can. Sect leader Xian's eyes flashed with bloodthirst as he made a sinister grin. Xian Xiaoyu just came out of that room and was about to go to main hall, to prance around as Zhuofan was at his death door. Yet he saw a disciple rushing to where the girls were held and shouted, Hey, what are you doing? Young master. The guy bowed. Young master, I am obeying sect leader's order, taking Chu Qingcheng and Han Xianying to the main hall. What? Xian Xiaoyu looked at the main hall in shock. Father, what the hell are you doing? Chapter 738, The Answer. Chapter 738, The Answer. Proofreader, Papatonks. What happened to the 2 from the demon scheming sect? Are they dead yet? Feeling restless for some reason, Xian Xiaoyu grabbed the disciple's shoulder as he asked. The disciple was slightly scared, holding in the pain coming from his shoulder as he faltered. They and sect leader were at odds at first. Sect leader gave the order to kill them. But then what? Xian Xiaoyu stared fixedly at him, gulping. The guy hesitated. Then sect leader had us leave. They talked some more, seemingly reaching a conclusion. Then sect leader had me bring the ladies. Beat it, Xian Xiaoyu roared, pushing him. His cheek twitched, his eyes exploding with fury. Reaching a conclusion? What the hell is that old coot doing? Didn't I tell him Zhuo Fan must be killed? Why are they just chatting? The disciple slowly got back to his feet, not even looking the angry young master in the eye. Young master, if that is all. I have to pass the order. Hold it. Xin Xiaoyu barked, and the guy almost cried in fear. He didn't know how he was supposed to face such a crazed young master. He feared the young master would explode and kill him. Ever since Double Dragon Gathering, the young master was unnatural, his mood volatile. Many junior brothers were killed at the slightest whim. It would not be much if this was a demonic sect, but we're a righteous sect here. How can you kill left and right? But since he was sect leader's son, everyone had no choice but to bear it. The guy spoke on the verge of crying. Young master, how may I help you? I'm coming with you. I want to see what game Zhuo Fan is playing to unsettle the old man. Xin Xiaoyu clenched his fists as his face twisted in rage. 15 minutes later, the heavy iron door opened with a creak. Xin Xiaoyu and the disciple were back inside. Qingcheng mocked. Back already? Xin Xiaoyu was vexed. He didn't answer. The disciple walked up. By sect leader's order, senior sisters Qingcheng and Qianying, please come to the main hall. Why should we? Qingcheng asked back. The disciple shook his head. I don't know. After sect leader talked with the two disciples from Demon Scheming Sect, he told me to get Pa. Before he finished, the disciple was met with disaster in the form of a hard slap. It hit his cheek with so much force, he was bleeding from the mouth and collapsed. You're supposed to relay the order, not run your mouth. Xin Xiaoyu glared. The disciple was overcome with injustice, but did not voice a word. The girls were overjoyed. Zhuo Fan got sect leader Xian to get them out. Han Qianying was startled as she muttered in disbelief. The crude Kuei Lang knows how to negotiate? It has to be Zhuo Fan. Qingcheng, your man is really something to make sect leader yield. Qingcheng smiled. Her pride in Zhuo Fan could not be explained with mere words. Xin Xiaoyu was annoyed at their faces and was about to blow a gasket. Don't get too happy. You might be going to main hall just to see Zhuo Fan begging on his knees for my dad's mercy. Give it up. Xin Xiaoyu snapped. Men, take them. Yes. Someone came over to escort them. Wait. They turned to Shui Ruohua. Can I come to the main hall to see as well? Shui Ruohua spoke. Xin Xiaoyu squinted, then nodded with a mocking smile. Sure, senior sister Ruohua, you've always looked after me before, but since the punk showed up, you've changed. Were you entranced by him as well? Then I'll bring you along as well, to see who the real winner is between us. Xin Xiaoyu flicked his hand, and another person came to Shui Ruohua to take her flushing red. Shui Ruohua glanced at Qingcheng, but what she got in reply was a curious look. She had to lower her beet-red face, unable to look straight at her. Xin Xiaoyu and the three girls strutted over to the main hall. Qianying. Seeing the girls, the restless Kuei Lang rushed to his feet and went to the girl he hadn't seen in 20 years to grab her soft face. Han Qianying shook, her own hands gently tracing the aged face as she spoke tenderly. It's been so long, Kuei Lang. Yeah, the child is all grown up. Kuei Lang nodded, choked with emotion. Zhuo Fan smiled. Then he looked at Qingcheng, yet in no rush to go to her. He just gracefully put down the teacup and simply walked to her. I've come to take you. Hold on. Zhuo Fan didn't get to reach her as Qingcheng stopped him. You came to take me? That's it? Why? Everyone started, not understanding her. Shui Ruohua was the most confused. Didn't she always want to see Zhuo Fan? Why refuse now? Zhuo Fan chuckled. Yeah, I didn't come just to take you. I want to give you a 10 years late answer. Qingcheng's eyes shook as she smiled. Do you still remember the question? Of course I do. Zhuo Fan took a deep breath as he began. I remember you asking me in Drifting Flower City whether I had any reason to stay for longer. Qingcheng nodded. And I recall you telling me no. I lied, and for that I even coughed blood. The reason for the blood you saw? Zhuo Fan's eyes glistened with tears, as if recalling that feeling. Now I want to answer you once more. In the Drifting Flower City, the only reason I had for wanting to stay was to spend my life in that rundown house. Because there I lived with the person I never wanted to leave. Qingcheng's mouth shook, then widened in a mesmerizing smile. Is this just another lie? Who knows? You'll have the rest of your life to see. Zhuo Fan smiled as he opened his arms. Are you willing to live your life by this demon side to verify this answer? Qingcheng giggled. Brazen demon. I will watch you all my life to see if you lied. If I find out you did, humph. Qingcheng stomped her feet, then rushed for Zhuo Fan to hold him in a fierce hug. She closed her eyes and listened to his heart as she muttered, "From now on, I will always listen to this sound, to know you." I couldn't be happier. He wrapped his hands around her waist as tenderness was evoked on his features. He took a deep breath, feeling like the whole world was at peace, or maybe that he possessed the entire world. Shui Ruohua watched stunned and sighed in disappointment, yet wished them well. Kue Lang was also smiling, happy for him. Only Xin Xiaoyu was fuming mad, ready to spew fire like a volcano. Vile demon, I'm not giving junior sister Qingcheng to you. Father, what is this? Why are you giving them to these demons? If word got out, who would respect mystical heaven sect again? What about me and my illness? Xin Xiaoyu turned to sect leader Xian, who started pointing out the reasons to not do this by giving Qingcheng to Zhuo Fan. How am I supposed to repair my elemental imbalance? I still need her virginity. She can only be my woman. Sect leader Xian knew all of this, but remained undeterred. Because he wanted both his son alive and those stones. Sect leader Xian spoke. Zhuo Fan, you already have what you wanted. Are you going to honor your promise? What promise? When did I promise you anything? Zhuo Fan mocked, going back on his word on the spot. Sect leader Xian roared, Zhuo Fan, you dare toy with me? Don't forget, you're in mystical heaven sect now. And? I got what I wanted anyway. Ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan's eyes glinted, his smile devilish. Chapter 739. Blatant Taunt. Chapter 739. Blatant Taunt. Proofreader. Papatonks. Sect leader Xian's face fell as he barked. I knew demonic cultivators aren't to be trusted, but I never believed you had the nerve to go back on your word right in my sect. Go back on my word? Ha ha ha. Sect leader Xian, you're blowing things out of proportion. Zhuo Fan sneered. Speaking of trust, there's nothing of the sort between us. Let's be honest here. Did you really go that far? All the way to Tianyu to get Qingcheng, just for double dragon gathering? Wasn't it to save your poor excuse of a son? Sect leader Xian shook as he spoke. Where did you hear that? Pa. Zhuo Fan snapped his fingers, and in a flash of blue, the Danner everyone knew appeared. Danner. The girls cried. Danner was shocked to appear here, but was happy to go to them. Sister Ruohua, Qingcheng, I told Zhuo Fan everything. He'll take us out. The girls smiled in joy. Sect leader Xian knew. Zhuo Fan knew everything and no longer faked. He stood up, unleashing all his power and his bloodlust. He clearly wanted to rob Zhuo Fan. Zhuo Fan sneered. Sect leader Xian, it was you who showed no trust in us. Our deal was never going to work. But now, I will give you one last chance. 2,000 sacred stones for Qingcheng and Han Qianying. You now have a choice to make between the future of the sect and your son's life. The people started and turned to sect leader Xian to wait for his answer. The girls now understood how Zhuo Fan convinced their sect leader to get them here. 2,000 sacred stones were very enticing for a sect. No wonder even the sect leader, who was always thinking about his son, was enticed. But when Zhuo Fan only mentioned Qingcheng and Han Qianying, Shui Ruohua was crushed. How did he forget about her? Xin Xiaoyu stared at his father, soaked in sweat, and waiting for his decision. It couldn't be that his dad was going to forsake him for 2,000 sacred stones, right? Zhuo Fan. Sect leader Xian squinted as he spoke. I want the fish and I also want the bear paw. How will you settle it? Zhuo Fan stared hard at him. Isn't it giving up the fish for the bear paw? Smiley face, Mincy is saying. The meaning is you have to sacrifice something in order to gain something. For the entire story, https://ethics of suicide. Lib Utah. edu/selections/Mincius/. Wrong. It's eating the paw and taking the fish. That's how you have them both. Sect leader Xian's aura exploded as his bloodthirst spiked, making everyone shiver. The power of an 8th layer ethereal stage expert caused these radiant stage cultivators to feel like they were under a mountain, suffocating under its pressure. Xin Xiaoyu was overjoyed. He got his dad's intention, to get both Qingcheng and the stones. That meant killing the two. His joy was short-lived, however, As a scarlet fist slammed into his chest, he couldn't even react as the power went through his chest like a sword. He sprayed out blood from his mouth as he was sent flying, making a 3-meter large hole in the wall. The bright sunlight shone from the outside on his bloody figure and glinting off the golden scales of his armor, now dented. Shuddering, Xian Xiaoyu looked at his original spot with hatred. Zizhua Fan. TCH, a 9th-grade spiritual armor. It must be your lucky day to survive a blow from me. Zhuofan said in disdain. Sect leader Xian went pale. A 30-meter-long red spear appeared behind him and pierced at Zhuofan's small build as he roared, "Zhuofan, you harmed my son. Die." At the incoming immense power bearing down on them, Han Qinying paled and wanted to warn Zhuofan, but Kuei-Lang stopped her with a smile. Han Qinying was puzzled. Zhuofan looked to be in the radiant stage. Fighting sect leader in his crazed state was a death sentence. However, Kuei-Lang showed not an ounce of worry. Do they all believe Zhuofan can live after sect leader's soul attack? She had no way of knowing. All the people here had seen Zhuofan's might, and they knew it was out of this world. Sect leader Xian, you're using power to have your way. Since you wanted this, then I won't hold back. Ha ha ha, Zhuofan snorted and looked at the long spear. He squinted and a dragon roar echoed out as an astonishing light came from his body. Bam! The loud bang grated the other's ears, the flood of power sweeping everything and making the main hall erupt. Its pieces falling everywhere, the mighty force made the whole sect quake. The elders and venerable were startled and rushed over, while the clueless disciples just watched the main hall in stupefaction. What's going on over there? The ground kept shaking as dust engulfed the skies, covering the bright sun above. The girls held their ears, shaking with the earth as they tried to hold on when the dust settled. Han Qinying watched in shock. That. Qinying, that is the proof Steward Zhua is the best disciple in Western lands. A heaven dragon soul like exalted double dragons. The large scarlet dragon flicked to its tail and wrapped the spear tight. It could not budge an inch. Zhuofan sneered at the spear, hardly caring about it. Kuei-Lang ached in pride as he made the introductions to his woman. As if the soul was his to begin with. Stumped, Han Qinying now came to and sighed. Junior sister, your man is just like you said. It's my first time seeing a disciple stopping sect leaders in raged blow. Qingcheng smiled in pride. Kuei-Lang was also smug. Qinying, Steward Zhua isn't just a disciple. In the Double Dragon Gathering his strength has got nothing to do with you. Don't talk like his glory is yours. Han Qinying cast her elegant eyes on him and shook her head. You haven't changed after all these years. You still like to brag, I see. Kuei-Lang gave a bashful smile, looking at Han Qinying with joy and bliss. Sect leader Xian watched Zhuofan's dragon and was shocked. He heard the disciples that came back that Zhuofan was tough, but not by this much. He was at the 8th layer ethereal stage, yet Zhuofan was only in the 4th layer radiant stage. The gap was more than 10 layers. Even with the heaven dragon soul, there was a limit to how much one could bridge it, yet his ever-trusted long spear could not even touch Zhuofan, trapped by that scarlet dragon. It was so strong it even overwhelmed an expert like him, as Zhuofan saw through his shock. Sect leader Xian, I might be of lower cultivation, but my soul formed when I entered the radiant stage. In other words, my soul is like a 4th layer ethereal stage soul. Not to mention it's the strongest there is, the heaven dragon soul. You'll have to try harder if you want to take my life. Ha! Sect leader Xian was outraged, his fists clenched. This is a blatant taunt. Never in his life had he been taunted by such a young radiant stage expert. What made it worse was that the taunt was irrefutable. Looking at the trapped long spear, sect leader Xian grew angrier. On his turf, he was the one that looked bad. His son was smashed, and he couldn't do anything about it. He felt he had no face left. Whoosh. Sect leader Xian shook and recalled the long spear. His eyes were fixed on Zhuofan, glinting coldly. Zhuofan, you really are the best disciple you showed at Double Dragon Gathering. But don't think for a second you can go where you want in Western lands. You're not the best yet. Here is the mystical heaven sect, not your backyard. Sect leader Xian roared and tens of figures littered the sky. Chapter 740, Hiding a Million Army. Chapter 740, Hiding a Million Army. Proofreader, Papatonks. Whoosh. One after the other, ethereal stage experts gathered around them, numbering more than 60. Their huge auras turned into a cage, trapping all of them in the middle, their hearts sinking. The girls looked at the savage faces they each had and shook. These were the highest powers of the sect. Alone, Zhuofan could beat them, but not like this. The girls were worried for Zhuofan, but he and Kuei-Lang were calm as ever. Not even Danner twitched. As if it was all in the plan, Danner sneered at those elders even. Rolling her eyes, ganging on, "We'll show you the real meaning soon enough. Zhuofan, there's nowhere for you to run." Seeing that help was here, Xin Xiaoyu regained his ego. Struggling to get to his feet from the heavy wound, he cackled, "Ha ha ha. Weren't you tough? Let's see how tough you are in my home. Men, finish him." Xin Xiaoyu ordered, and the elders were about to act, but sect leader Xian held them back, ignoring his clueless son. Sect leader Xian eyed Zhuofan, "Hand over the stones and I'll let you go." "Father," Xin Xiaoyu cried out, but sect leader Xian waved him off with an evil grin plastered on his face. Zhuofan said, "Sect leader Xian, you take me for a 3-year-old? If word got out that mystical heaven sect not only wanted to kill me from the start, but now wants to rob a mere disciple of his sacred stones, the whole Western lands will look down on you. Would you actually allow that to happen? Ha. In the end, you'll still use power to have your way. I'm no fool, so please don't insult my intelligence. No one would believe you. Zhuofan, your biggest flaw is that you're too clever. It would have been so much better if you just died without knowing so much." Sect leader Xian's brow shook. "Since you already guessed it, then no more mincing words. I'll just have to search your corpse for my prize." "Are you sure you'll find them?" "Ha ha ha, even if I don't, it won't matter. In the end, an astute man like you won't ever leave this place alive." Sect leader Xian shouted, "Everyone attack! Kill him at all costs!" The others roared and converged on Zhuofan, unleashing their souls and surrounding the almighty Scarlet Dragon King. The thick bloodthirst had even almighty Scarlet Dragon King shaking. Zhuofan raised an eyebrow and waved. "Sect leader Xian and the mighty mystical heaven sect is ganging up on someone. My, if only the world knew." "You're wrong. No one will know with you dead." Sect leader Xian had a nasty smirk on his face. "Western lands will soon find out the best talent in Western lands." Zhuofan invaded mystical heaven sect in his madness to violate and kill a female disciple, causing havoc through our sect. The elders fought to contain you, but the demon was berserk and had no choice but to put him down. Not even Xie Wuyue can question that. The others were shocked. Sect leader Xian wanted to kill them at all costs, then make up some excuse. Seeing the elders closing in, they turned serious, with the girls ready to die, and this only Zhuofan took it in stride. "Nice speech. But what about this take? The best talent in Western lands, the distinguished and carefree Zhuofan, was the victim of a most nefarious ploy. The mystical heaven sect planned on robbing him of the 2,000 sacred stones and even killing him for them. However, the sect elders came to the rescue, carving a path of blood." Zhuofan's ring flashed and 50 demon scheming sect elders came out, displaying their souls with a bang as they met the mystical heaven sect's strike. The elders returned to Zhuofan's side with a heavy face as they watched the enemy warily. While mystical heaven sect's elders were stunned to see 50 more people coming out of nowhere. "What? This kid's ring can hold people?" Xin Xiaoyu's eyes shook as he cried out. Sect leader Xian shook his head. "At most, his ring can only hold these many. Calm down." Sect leader Xian mocked Zhuofan. "Your version isn't bad, but a shame it's not going to happen. This is the mystical heaven sect. I have all the men and power I need while you only have 50 people. What's 50 more corpses anyway?" Sect leader Xian shouted, "Inner elders and venerables, hear my order." At his summons, the sky was soon filled with people flying over one after the other. Chapter 741. Necro Dragon's Claws. Chapter 741. Necro Dragon's Claws. Proofreader, Papatonks. Venerable Qi, Venerable Bai, you will take the right flank and stop the enemy. Elder Chio, Sister Shui, you take the left flank. Elderly, you will take the remaining ethereal stage experts and carve a path through the middle. The disciples are to go with the Flying Tiger Army on a killing spree. get the treasury, and cut off their reinforcements. The army just showed up and Luo Yunhai started giving orders, just like how a real marshal would. The men roared and went to execute. The mystical heaven sect oldies were still slow on the uptake when the demon scheming sect's force came at them with the intent to kill. Now they had to react, however. Demon scheming sect's force had Luo Yunhai preparing them till now, teaching them formation. The sheer display had struck fear into the mystical heaven sect, caught unprepared as they were, and it made them frantic in their response in a single fight. A commander had little importance, while in a group, that was where he showcased his ability, taking initiative on the battlefield through strategy and awareness in a split second. The battle turned out to be an enactment of the strategy Luo Yunhai and Zhuo Fan devised early on. Taking the higher ground, they were the ones surrounded by hundreds of elders, yet now, the left and right sides were freed while in center, Elder Li's force was having an easy time clearing a path. Luo Yunhai then took Flying Tiger Army, the Radiant Stage and Profound Heaven Demon Scheming Sect disciples as he shot forth, ignoring the Ethereal Stage experts' fights so as to not suffer needless losses. Their targets? Mystical Heaven Sect disciples. They aimed to kill them and take the treasury's arms and pills to cripple the enemy's backup, although the reinforcements were close. Knowing that it was taken out so fast it would strike a blow at the Ethereal Stage experts' morale, sapping them of the will to fight. Zhuo Fan nodded. Yunhai is becoming more and more outstanding. He doesn't cower, even when ordering Ethereal Stage experts. He's just like me back in the day. There's the Luo clan as well? Looking at the familiar faces, Qingcheng was startled. Zhuo Fan nodded. Yep, they heard the great Steward was taken and came in full force to help me. Haha, well, even though it's been so long since I left the Luo clan, they still hold me in high regard. She rolled her eyes and shook her head. But what about the demon scheming sect? How did you get the sect leader to give you so much power? Han Qianying asked in shock. She had grown in the sect and knew of its might. But why would demon scheming sect leaders spare nothing in saving Zhuo Fan's wife? She just couldn't figure it out. Was Zhuo Fan so important to the sect leader, much more than the sect? Zhuo Fan and Kuei Leng looked at each other and chuckled. Well, we'll talk later. Now, we need to finish what we started. Zhuo Fan's eyes shone and stared at Sect Leader Xian. Grinning, he shouted, Sect Leader Xian, it seems to me, my version isn't far from becoming a reality. Ha ha ha. Sect Leader Xian's face twitched. Watching the frantic battlefield, he grew startled and angry, clenching his fists as he shook all over. Zhuo Fan's sudden attack was out of his predictions, and that had him scared, to the point it even made room for panic to set in. But he was a sect leader after all. He took a couple of deep breaths to calm down. Mystical Heaven Sect, fight. Beat back the invaders. Toll the bell. Ack. Yet not far from the main hall, howls came as it started burning. Sect Leader Xian cried, That's the treasury. They're stealing our arms and cutting off our supplies. Damn it. They were ready for it from the start. That's why they started this war, said a venerable with a long beard who was standing next to Sect Leader Xian. He started cursing. But how the hell did these outsiders know where our treasury was? Who the hell told them? Sect Leader Xian gnashed his teeth and held a girl in his bloodshot eyes. Danner, you damn traitor. You even told everything to your enemies. You're giving Mystical Heaven Sect no chance of survival. If I had known, I wouldn't have taken you in. Well? Shaking, Danner looked scared as she hid behind Qingcheng. But she soon got over her fear and stuck out her nose. Master, didn't you take me in for your own devices? Enough of your noble act. Stop trying to look benevolent. As Zhuo Fan said, we each take what we need, regardless of the other. You want our lives, and I'm supposed to just give it? No way. Shaking all over, Sect Leader Xian was fuming mad as he barked, Filthy traitor. You've been lied to by that demon punk. I'll make sure to get rid of you for this betrayal. Sect Leader Xian pointed, and the long spear soul shot straight for Danner Ack. Danna once again ducked behind Qingcheng. Then, the dragon roared once more and Zhuo Fan's almighty Scarlet Dragon King blocked the girls. It flicked its tail and slammed the long spear from the immense power surge that was released. Many ethereal stage experts that were fighting were blown away as the long spear was beaten back. Almighty Scarlet Dragon King also had a scale on its tail destroyed from the clash. This was a draw, Sect leader Xian. The lass is my wife's little sister, which makes her my little sister. Are you looking down on me so much by targeting her? Zhuofan walked on the Scarlet Dragon and mocked Sect leader Xian. Sect leader Xian gnashed his teeth as he spat. Zhuofan, you've brought all of them here to ruin my sect. I won't let you off for this. You're talking as if you would have if I was alone, hypocrite. Zhuofan sneered. No matter what, today I vowed to accomplish 3 things. 1. To answer my wife's 10-year-long question. 2. To take her from this place she gave herself for my sake. And 3. Humph. Zhuofan's eyes shone with bloodlust. To get rid of any that dare threaten my wife. That's why your death is at hand, so you will never touch her again. Zhuofan roared as the Scarlet Dragon shot for Sect leader Xian. Sect leader Xian gnashed his teeth and charged as well. The huge long spear and the mighty Scarlet Dragon clashed in a mighty display of force. The power surge made the fights around look like a children's scuffle, forcing the ethereal stage experts to back away before they could resume the fight. Demon scheming Sect's oldies saw for the first time Zhuofan's soul and were shocked by its power. Looking at the two fight, that was not between a disciple and a sect leader, but between 2 sect leaders. Every elder and venerable sighed, then nodded. At some point it seemed Zhuofan wielded the power of a sect leader. Sect leader will help you. The 2 venerables next to sect leader Xian shouted, but a black shadow appeared in front of them. Li Jingtian gave them a cold look. Sorry, I hope you won't disturb Steward's fight. You'll be fighting me. The 2 mocked. You're only in the 6th layer while we are in the 7th layer ethereal stage. You hope to take us all by yourself? Fool. Ha, idiots. We are Steward's people. How can our cultivation be normal? Li Jingtian sneered. Only dumb homegrown cultivators would ever think that. The 2 were outraged. Humph. You'll know soon enough, old man. Behold the power of mystical heaven sect's double-axe exterminators. The 2 shook, and a huge axe as well as battle axe appeared behind them. Their power was so mighty it felt like they would rip space as they hacked at Li Jingtian. Ha. Our double-axe souls are famous throughout Western lands for their sharpness. Even a domain soul will have a hole ripped in it. Your death is certain with your weak cultivation. Sorry to disappoint you, then. Li Jingtian's eyes flashed and grinned at the incoming axes. Then, a malevolent aura exploded from him. Soul variant, Necro dragon claws. Roar. A roar shook the skies as a pitch-black dragon enveloped Li Jingtian. The 2 dragon claws oozed sinister power as it grabbed the axes. The 2 mocked. Fool, that's no heavenly dragon soul. There's no way that it can. Ugh. Crack. The 2 shook and their eyes bugged out, dying like that. As for the axes, they were torn to pieces, dissipating in the wind on Li Jingtian's black dragon claws. There was even a faint black glow. I'm no heaven nor earth dragon soul, but that doesn't mean I'm going to lose to some overconfident fools. Li Jingtian's eyes shone and he left, leaving the surrounding elders to gape in shock. Did he come from the secular world? For him to be tied to Zhuofan, he must be something else.